Disclaimer: the information and education material contained herein is meant to promote the general understanding and dialogue of GAN's processing. Such information is not meant or intended to serve as a substitute for a healthcare professional's clinical training, experience, or judgment. For patients and individuals, such information is not to be a substitute for professional medical, therapeutic, or healthcare advice or counseling. For medical issues or concerns, including decisions about medications and other treatments, readers, viewers, listeners should always consult their physician or, in serious cases, seek immediate assistance from emergency personnel. Prescription information, procedures, and use of medical devices information should be undertaken only by properly trained and certified medical personnel. We specifically disclaim any warranties, express or implied, including implied warranties of merchantability or fitness for a particular purpose. Such information is provided, as is, and is believed to be accurate at the time of its publishing, but it is the viewer's job to evaluate the accuracy of any information found in this presentation. Every case presented is of their own experience, applied by themselves for themselves, and it applies to their case only. Every person experiencing health problems should seek professional medical advice and consult their course of treatment with a doctor. The processes of plasma balancing described herein are a natural process which supports the body but does not replace medical advice or therapies one is already subject to.
An amazing event happened on planet Earth in the beautiful city of Beijing, China. The cosmic ray technology was shown for the first time to the public by the financial arm of Keshe Foundation, the American Mark Ray Corporation, which is traded on the US stock exchange. Mr. Keshe himself went to China to show creation of materials from the magnetic fields by using obsolete technology, or what we call rotating gas reactors with electric motors. He's using these old reactors as a starting point for humanity to slowly accept the evolution in science and technology. For 3 days straight, the reactors were run and shown live on Zoom so that anybody from around the world who wanted to could come in and see. Black particles like dust start appearing on the white paper sheets around the reactors. These particles are being created through the reactors and the fields of the universe and the inertia of our planet. They are not coming from the room. There were 4 sets of pairs of reactors with red and green gases spinning in them. We were told they were not CH3 and CuO, but something else. They were set up in a star formation on tables inside the front windows of the Intercontinental Hotel. Anybody passed on the street could see them. White papers and spoons were spread around the reactors to catch the materials being formed from the fields. Some knowledge seekers were able to capture on video when black specks suddenly appeared on the paper, like out of thin air. It was very interesting to witness when energy first appears in the matter state. As time went on and the fields built up and changed strength, the specks formed into bigger pieces and some elongated, and some changed color into gold. This is the first time the public has been able to freely witness the creation of matter from energy. At the end of 3 days, Mr. Keshe collected more particles and showed everyone attending. An interesting thing occurred. When he touched the black dust on the paper with his finger, it turned gold. He said it interacted with the fields of the inertia of the earth through his finger. This phenomenon was written about in ancient times when the Greek god Midas touched things and it was said they turned to gold. What we witness here is how everything in the universe is created, from ourselves to the planets and even cancer.
And welcome each and all to the Keshe American Knowledge Team. It is December 14th, 2025. And we just want to welcome you all again to the knowledge of the universe, this esoteric knowledge in a way. Mr. Keshe went into that a bit hidden knowledges, and they use the phoenix. And what we saw in Beijing is just another feather in the cap of the Keshe Foundation. I'm sure Newton and many others who tried transmutation processes would be very proud of what they see and what has been done. But again, this is obsolete technology in a way, but certainly he's using this as an example of what we can do with our own reactors, our own structure. As he said, we haven't understood the simplest thing about our own creation, meaning us, and how we can actually use this beautiful creation to, again, confirm many of the processes in the universe. And so we're just opening up this knowledge, almost like John the Baptist. We're sort of forerunners, showing and telling what's done. There is some resistance. There'll probably be more resistance, but as we know, there's a bigger pattern of work going on in the universe as we're coming up to this 19th, right around the time we've celebrated the birth of the daughter of Mitra. Now we'll be celebrating the birth of Mitra, and not coincidentally, after 30 centuries or so, we may see, as Rick sort of pointed out, we may see another star in the sky. And if we don't see anything, I think we'll start to feel some of the changes. But as Mr. Keshe said, man looks for an outcome, and he looks for the onset of the process. And I think the process began a long, long time ago. Of course, it's coming more into fruition. So this is a very exciting time to be here in and around the Keshe Foundation. And again, we're talking about the Mark Ray Corporation. And of course, this is the home of cosmic rays and the use of them, the cutting of them, the interacting of them. And as he showed the gold, we can do this with copper to cotton to water and any other materials. And of course, we were sort of playing around with the hands and so on, and creating energy between the hands, and then perhaps using the eye of the soul to see what you've created in that dimension. And then, as he said in the first part of the teaching, which he's reiterated many times, if you understand the last few minutes, you should be able to transmute. And we all have that capability. And of course, why do we want to transmute? As he said to Myrna, do you want to take 14 hours to go from Beijing to New York, or do you want to do it in 14 seconds? But even more than that, it's a understanding a process of, in a way, immortality. Even though the soul is immortal, apparently we can let it go on its own, or we can sort of transmute and maintain our physicality. So this is an aspect of immortality that we're all learning, and every created being has the capability and the attributes of the creator. Very interesting to see that the creator probably goes through the same sort of process as we do, the cycle of regeneration from creator to created and back to energy. We'll have to see. This is one of the big questions he was asking. But of course, before we go there, we're going to cover the World Peace Treaty. But let's just open it up. If anyone has anything special they'd like to share about maybe your enlightenment or something that may have happened to you. We're having more and more of these reports of people coming forward and losing some of their shyness. And I know we'll have more and more as this technology gets accepted. But as Mr. Keshe said at the end of the workshop, we'll have to see the change. We have a lot to wait for and to observe, but he said we may see the bigger change in 20 or 30 years. So it's a change of emotions, but yet at the same time, we can play with our own reactors. Most people don't even realize you do have a system, or if they've considered it, they thought it was rather hokey. I know I pulled up the chakras in a way, and of course we've heard these energy dimensions in that, and Mr. Keshe at one point in time said he didn't believe in the chakras, especially the seventh one. But there are, again, referrals to energy within the body of the man and fields and the rest. And we're just starting to open up the mystery of the matter state of the entity to its energies, meaning all of us and all of the creation. And this is part of the process we're going through, that every created thing in the universe will have this capability to be able to transmute between the two dimensions. And as he said, then all the races become equal in the universe. So anything anyone would like to share about the last workshop, um, in a way, before we read the World Peace Treaty? Because this is part, again, we're introducing a new ethos, a new science, a new ethos, and of course, a new language. Maybe we should make this a little bit bigger. But this is, again, the World Peace Treaty. Very simple document, but very profound. You can use this on this planet and, again, in space, and start playing with that energy dimension, which we always knew was there, but we've never really applied it because we are this chameleon type of being operating both in the matter state and also in the energy state. But we've denied it. And as he said, the fearfulness has not allowed us to, in a way, create that strength to make the transmutation. But again, he said we need to approach it rather slowly. I remember one of the things Mr. Keshe said, the knowledge seekers are too much in a hurry. And of course, ignorance was one of the biggest obstacles of man going into space, whether he goes in the matter state or whether he goes in the energy or a combination of both, which I think will be available. But this is our World Peace Treaty. And of course, this is why we've sort of been confined to this planet because as a race, we haven't been fully peaceful. As we know, 5,000 wars in the last 3,000 years. And this ethos is not allowed in the universe. This warring, this stealing, and the rest of this, even though there's probably some imbalances in the universe as well. But as Mr. Keshe said, we need to nip it in the bud at the source of the problem. And this is one of the nurseries that has a problem. And then, of course, going out and replicating the same thing across the universe. And it needs to be changed. So this is why the fields are changing. And this is the enlightenment or elevation of the man. And there's a lot of systems at work. But as far as what we can do and wish for peace, you may not be 100% peaceful. I don't think anyone is. But we're trying to move in that direction. As we know, the Creator doesn't kill or destroy any of its creation to exist and live and enjoy the beauty of the universe and interactions as well. So if he made the man in the image of himself, we should be able to accomplish the same. We just haven't trusted and understood the process yet. But step by step, little by little, we're all being awakened in a way to a dimension that we didn't trust in and that we really never knew existed and could be developed. From the zero time communication to doing many things in the transmutation aspect, as well as the wellness arena. And of course, there's many systems, as Mr. Keshe said. We'll try to cover some of these today. But this is our World Peace Treaty. Again, a new science, a new ethos, where the stronger actually feeds the weaker, not steals from the weaker. So would anyone like to read the World Peace Treaty? This will become quite a popular item in the future. And I think it's there now in most of the hearts of the men, because as he said, most of us, 99% of us, are peaceful. We're not fully peaceful, but we don't want the wars against each other. But there's more issues to solve as well. So anyone would like to read the World Peace Treaty? Probably open your mic. If you love peace and the foundation, the work we're doing. Okay, I will read it. We, as citizens of the earth, from this moment on, accept to lay down all tools of aggression and war. We shall never think about getting involved or incite war or develop or use any tools of war on this planet or in space. And to this we all agree and swear with you could delete as appropriate, our nation, our territory, our council, our religion, our city, our town, our body, and our soul or souls. Simply, the rest is pretty much straightforward. Have it witnessed, and then you can proudly display this certificate wherever you consider being important to you, that everyone can see and know your ethos to fellow men and the mankind and other created beauties of the Creator. As we know, the Creator shows himself in trillions of faces across the universe. And of course, one of the ideas of Mitraism is to lay down all tools of aggression and war. And of course, in our minds, this idea of thinking, speaking, and acting is a huge amount of war, probably more than in the physicality for most of us. But we don't realize it. We think it's just thoughts. But as he said, the Zoroastrians choose their words quite carefully because they know some of the ramifications. But again, that's for you to apply this idea of thinking, speaking, and acting correctly. As Mr. Keshe said, if you don't think bad, then you don't talk bad and you don't act bad. But it's for you to apply it to yourself. And then, of course, I think more doors open up, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Any other comments anyone wants to make, or any comments on the World Peace Treaty? I know it looks like the bridge is quite far. We see many conflicts and things, but what's happening is the upgrading of the soul of the man to become a peaceful entity in this planet or in the space. And again, I think the space is right between your ears. As we know, the secret is in the brain, the spaceship is in the soul. And I think this is where you can create a lot. Although we will do the full transmutation at some point, actually manifesting matter. But I would like to stay in one of the most beautiful places in the universe, or the most beautiful place in the universe, in the matter state, which is this planet. And then, of course, you can explore the entire universes through the dimension of energy and still be here with your physicality. And if you find a beautiful place you'd like to experience, you can also do that. But there's still more to learn about this. So we want to thank the Keshe Foundation for so many feathers that are in the hat. I know maybe Mr. Keshe doesn't put any feathers in the hat, but he does wear many, many hats, as we've seen, from diplomat to scientist to space traveler and the rest of it as a universal teacher. Okay, anyone else want to make a comment? I know so little, I'm hoping one of the others will help me. And again, the knowledge continues to get deeper and deeper and deeper. So shall we cover something about the latest Knowledge Seekers Workshop, which was the 620th, where we will take a look at the announcements. Perhaps we'll go to the teaching as well. As he said, if you understand the next 5 or 10 minutes, you should be able to transmute. And of course, what we saw with those who attended the birthday of the daughter of Mitra, he said, again, confirming whether it was in a workshop or in that particular meeting, we all have this ability to transmute. It just sounds so foreign. And again, we have a bit of fear. I think he mentioned fear in this workshop about 47 times, and we haven't understood the whole process and how to trigger it. But there are techniques to do it, and slowly, gradually. And of course, we have system support within the Keshe Foundation of this One Nation network, which he mentioned again, and the importance of it. Yeah, there were so many beautiful things partnering with the Keshe Foundation. Again, about the fear, then the liquid viruses are going to be offered, and perhaps, I mean, liquid as in the Cup of Life 1 and 2, probably, but they may be able to be transmitted apparently through the One Nation network. This is usually the objective of why he's creating, I think, some of these things in the offers in the store, that you could actually have the physical item, but also you could order it in a way through the energy dimension of the One Nation network. So this is, again, he said, these units are much more than any of us can imagine. So where would we like to go? Usually I go to the announcements first, and the announcements were about the UBSOs. Let's just share the Keshe Foundation store for a moment. Let's bring up all the products here. And of course, this whole store will also, there'll probably be a mirror image of it on Shopify with many, many other products added to it. Again, he's reaching out to, if you have a product or something you'd like to enhance with the plasma technology, please contact the Keshe Foundation. But this is the One Nation Network, which is He's been, again, pushing to create a mesh grid on this planet. And of course, there's a game in there and many, many other things in the physical dimension. And then antennas will be added to sort of bring it into the more and more into the energy dimension, where apparently even all of the 620 or 1,000 workshops, he may go up to 1,000, will be sort of embedded within the soul of the man. And as we know, this is all universal knowledge. So perhaps at that time, down the road a bit, we'll understand some of these concepts a bit deeper within ourselves, and the transmutation process will start for many. I would love to go to China in 14 seconds rather than 2 days. And some of us have experienced that before, and all the rigmarole of going through the lines and the check-in and the checkouts and the missing the gate, or other things that can happen, and all the rest of it. So this is what will be happening in the very near future, and much of this will go through the One Nation Network, I believe. But of course, there's much more. Would anyone like to share anything? Okay, let's perhaps we'll start with the announcements. And of course, the Christmas package is here as well. And he indicated that this would also be offered for Valentine's Day. And of course, these will be offered for Easter as well. As you can see, there's many little things you can hang on a tree, put as ornaments around the house year round. Some of them are sort of universal in a way, like the little candle holders, but they're not a flame candle, they're a lighted candle. And of course, these are very functional, bringing peace and balance into an environment. So they can, even if they're put away in the box. So these things will happen again for Easter and for Valentine's Day. So just to let you be aware of that. And beautiful gifts to someone who's perhaps having some imbalances in the home with the children or between the couples. It'll just enhance the whole situation, and you can just observe from afar. So that is happening. What else is happening in and around the Keshe Foundation? Shall we go to the announcements? Again, this is the Ubiso's looks very much like this, the portable one now. We know it had a very large stature, and this was the original Ubiso's. This is what he talked about mostly in the announcements. And they used to call this the egg, and we've seen some videos in China without the superstructure sort of on it, where the man was processed for Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, and made quite a bit of recovery in a very short period. Came in a wheelchair and was actually walking the first or second day. So this was years and years ago, and now it's gone into a portable type of thing, and now there is an enhancement into something like this. But he said the exterior would be the same, but the interior is greatly advanced. And somehow it's going to be connected to the One Nation Network as well. So a lot of things that we don't fully understand, but again, another feather in the hat of the Keshe Foundation. So let's see if we can go to the announcements. I think they started, somewhere around here, and we'll take a look at. Again, this store will grow, and it'll appear on Shopify in the coming period, but it will grow into tens of thousands of products as the artisans and other companies start to get involved and use or complement their existing products with the plasma technology. One of the things I was thinking of, which is again an idea for anyone, but we hear of the sick building syndrome, and I was equating it to like the soaps. If you can impregnate, I don't know who the largest filter person is in the world or number of companies, but these high-rise buildings have a huge amount of filters in them, and they get changed regularly. And you can certainly, by using the plasma technology, create a beautiful environment within the building of cooperation and wanting to actually be at work. So just a suggestion to anyone in the filter business. If you have any ideas, you may want to approach the Keshe Foundation. I think it'll be they'll probably be, you know, bringing in fields of peace and balance and cooperation among coworkers, which will increase the productivity simply by putting in filters in the air handling system, and probably a lot of other, as we know, the sick building syndrome. So I think this is a beautiful suggestion for somebody who's working with filters or air filtration, that they may want to try something new rather than just filtering out smaller and smaller particles. Just a thought of mine, but others have had other ideas, and I think there's a lot of people. We can play this partnership later on about what Mr. Keshe was saying, if you'd like to partner with the Keshe Foundation. So this is how the store will grow into tens and tens of thousands of items within the store. And your project, if you're an artisan or you're a manufacturer, will get showcased worldwide, which should increase your obviously your exposure, but also your sales numbers.
20th Knowledge Seekers Workshop here on Thursday, December 11th, 2025. And as I mentioned, there'll be an opportunity to ask questions of Mr. Keshe. But first, he will have something to say, if not several things to say about the current issues and whatnot. So please go ahead, Mr. Keshe, if you're there.
Yes, thank you very much. As you have seen these, what we call Christmas packages, very unusual for the Keshe Foundation. All the orders for this materials has completed, and in so many ways, there is no orders outstanding, but there are a few odd pieces which are mass produced and are there. And then immediately after.
And that means if you missed something on the Christmas package and you'd like to order, there's a few odd pieces left. I'm sure they can put a number of orders together. And again, some of these things can be used year round. Why isn't this allowing my mouse to control it?
The new year, the Keshe Foundation has done a series for Valentine in the rhythm of our, what's called Text of Valentine, and for Easter. Those products are already produced. So it's a limited when they release it. And this time it's not the packages, it's individual items as it's sold, it will not be there. But again, it carries all essences of and what we try to apply. There's one thing that we have explained before. I put this out last week, slightly, and this week. Those of you who bought Obisos, you received the first stuff in the conferences, or some of you received part of it. The second part is released, or the most advanced part of the what we call Obisos, which is the new version, is released. It's going to be delivered, and step by step, it's a very complicated system. And the first 5 will leave hopefully before Christmas, and the balance will go into next year, and you will receive it. Please understand, these will be invoiced, and you have to clear customs with it. It's part of the structure. You can use this with the initial systems we gave you, or use this on their own.
And again, if you're in the United States, because our president has put tariffs, anything you order out of the store, you will pay a value-added tax in Europe, but you'll also pay a 20% import duty tax. And this is what he's saying. So anyone who's ordered a Ubisos, apparently there's a tax bill coming, and we're not sure exactly what that will be. I think in the United States it's 20%, but I'm not sure how it'll be handled with the portable one and the rest. Anyone have any comment on that? We call it a UBSOS. It's the Universal Body Enhancement Spaceship Unit, which it has many functions which complement or the one, it'll be part of the One Nation Network, and also be able to sort of balance out other conditions. We'll have to see how this works out. Again, they have to change a number of structures within the Keshe Foundation to accomplish all this. But it's in process, and some of them will go out.
It's very advanced, what we call the obesos, and they are not, if the packaging might look something you've seen before, but internally they're extremely advanced. And they should be with it coming up 2 pieces, hopefully, that you can position anywhere in the body for whatever purpose you want. So please be ready. You have to clear custom these once it's delivered to you, and you are subject to all the what we call dimensions of the what we call the importing goods at the prices you paid, you whatever duty they ask you to pay or whatever is with you. We have to put it through the customs, because the last time we gave it to you in the conferences, this time has to be registered as the goods has left, which have taken what do you call it, as we said in our agreement with you, any update in technology which applies to it will come, and after 2 years this is an upgrade version and needs to be delivered. So please be prepared, those of you board obesos, for the delivery of these systems. You get a call from the tax and you have to complete it, and the rest of it to be accepted. Otherwise it'll be sent back to us and they're no use to us because it's locked into the system for you. Is there any questions? We try to answer.
Okay, any questions anyone has about the UBSOS? It's been quite a long time, and many people will be, I think, very impressed. As he said, this one, same housing, so it's just like a car, but they're internally is where the changes has come. And it's, as he said, a very advanced and complicated, maybe not so complicated, but for me to understand it, it is probably complicated. But these will be going out, and I think they'll be able to be reached plasmatically. If you, again, I'm not exactly sure how this will be set up, but it does appear to me that you could reach somebody with these across the world if they're set for certain conditions. Again, I'm not sure how this and the One Nation Network will sort of mesh together, but they already have it. As we say, we only understand about or see 5% of what the Keshe Foundation is actually doing. So slowly the technology is coming out, and slowly he's revealing some of the functions and how these systems are going to be connected together into this mesh grid for not only this planet, but across the universe. So we're involved, you're all involved in it, or have an opportunity to be involved in a very universal work, shall we say. I thought maybe before we, if we want to listen to the teaching, but this was the first question, and it was suggested we play this again, understanding the emotions and the feelings, which he said are the same, but yet slightly different. One sort of is a response to the other, but the other keeps the other going as well. And this is what he's saying, look into more of our emotions, and this is part of the creation process if we understand it. Anyone want to say anything about feelings and emotions? And again, rather than filter it through me, because I have to filter it through the foundation, let's just put the universal teacher up front, and that way each and every one of us can filter it as it pleases us. This is the way I like to sort of share the knowledge, because Mr. Keshe sets the buffet for everyone. With me, you have to listen to my understanding of what I think he said. So that's one of the reasons. And of course, we know there's additional things embedded into these workshops. And we've heard some very interesting comments, and there's probably more, as I said, but people are perhaps a little shy to be overheard saying something by their families or others on social media and the rest of what they feel they're not supposed to be overheard saying. Like, I went into the system and all of a sudden something changed for the better. And again, people want to know if a doctor or whatever is involved. But as he said, we're leaving it up to the soul to decide to pick up that energy and create a change within the dimension of physicality. So it's quite an amazing process that's going on here. So perhaps we'll listen to this first question on everyone has feelings and everyone has emotions. We'll put up the, but it's a matter of balancing them and the rest of this. So I'm going to move this screen over to here, and then we'll just take a look at the beautiful transcript that we have to share. So I don't think we're at the right place. We need to go about 5 minutes past the announcements. Very short on the announcements today. But again, very powerful, this Ubisos will. And he said even to, well, I guess that's when it was in the bigger one, he said it could actually physically fly. But if you can fly in the dimension of the soul and travel instantaneously, maybe you would like to fly in the matter state through the fields. It'll be quite quick as well. As he said, with that sort of system, we were talking 14 seconds. He was mentioning on transmutation. He said probably maybe 10 minutes from New York to Beijing in an actual craft. And most of it is getting up and landing. That's most of the time. The travel is pretty close to instantaneous. But apparently you have to get up and then you have to come back down onto the planet. So there's some adjustments that go on in that process. But it is a physical, very much like an airline without the slowness. So let's just see where we are here. Okay, 102. Let's see if we can go to the first question. And here, I just need to move one of these out of the way. And I think we're right there on this system. There we go. Let's just take a look at one of the questions, maybe two, and then we'll go back to the actual teaching, because this is all about you and applying it to yourself. I'm having trouble trying to apply it to myself rather than apply it to anyone else. But we can certainly share how we've been enlightened. And of course, just opening up that you have this capability and accepting it is an enlightenment right there in itself, where most people will say, no, it's not possible. All the science would know about it, and this means they reject that. So then they can't really experience it, even though they are experiencing it when they perhaps have a daydream or a night dream and the rest. So let's hear more about the feelings. What is the difference between feeling and emotion? And I think we should start right about here.
Okay, thank you. Let me see here. We have a question from Stefania. I think that's appropriate. And this question also came up, I think, in the last plasma reactor group as well. It's the idea about emotion and feeling. So the question is, what is the difference between feeling and emotions? And is it the emotion that makes the feeling, or is it the feeling that makes the emotion? So can you clarify?
This is, in a way, they are both the same. But if you go to the English language as emotion, it means something that's created from in reaction to movement of something. This is what we look at it as an English language. But emotion, what happens physically to you, creates a a feeling. And that sometimes feeling creates the emotion that is in a way the creator of the other. A feeling is connected with the dimension of physical life, and emotion is dimension of energy side. You have to feel the cold, you have to feel the touch, you have to feel the energies of hate. Or do we feel the emotion of hate? Do we feel the emotion of the being in danger? And does being in danger create the emotion of being unsafe? So we have to understand which comes from which direction and how at that point are connected. We create emotion with the soul, which has no dimension to physicality. It's connected to the other dimension of soul of a lower order. So feeling, because we feel it, we don't feel a touch with our soul. It has a dimension of physicality and emotion to it, that in a way, energy leads to a response of the what we call the total physicality in that dimension.
And that certainly happens with me and the cat. When the cat comes on my lap and is purring and everything is fine, it doesn't really change my emotions. When the cat jumps on me and sinks her claws into my pants and then my legs, I have a totally different emotion or feeling being created. So that feeling creates that emotion of, hey, wait a minute, what are you doing? You're digging your nails into me. Stop it. So this is the idea. I don't think the soul feels that, but the physicality feels it. Any comments on that? Again, we're just trying to understand more about our own creation.
A few years ago, quite a few years ago, I met a young girl in her early 20s, mid-20s. She had cancer of thyroid. They did a normal procedure for the cancer, and she was very much dependent on taking tablets to go to sleep and not to fall asleep for a long time. So her life is controlled by tablets, how much she sleeps. This girl sat across me, and I asked simply a directive. Those of you who've been with me know me. I don't beat about the bush when I want to know something. I said, you're young, and this cancer cannot be at your age. Have you been raped? And you could not defend yourself. She burst into tears. He said, how do you know? I said, you have created emotion because you could not shout, you could not make a noise, you could not do anything. You blame yourself for that.
And this is what we heard in the intro video, where you can create things, even cancer, within your own structure, right through those emotions. And now he's giving a beautiful example. And we all do that. It starts with the emotion. This is connected to many of our conditions, which the current medical is not fully aware of, or if they are aware of it, they choose not to address it. So we can create many things within our own structure using the energy, and then we see it appear in the matter state. So a very similar process.
So this physical act of feeling being raped has brought the emotion of death not failing. It was done on one of the campuses in the United States, which is supposed to be the worst place you can ever educate yourself. And I sat in front of her, And I explained the emotion that this is not your fault. There's nothing you can do because the guy put the hands on her throat. 12 o'clock at night, she was going from one hall of residence to another, and she was targeted by the students. As you know, in America, is very common. Killing and raping is a backbone of the education system of the United States. And it took me about a week on a continuous discussion. She would not finish her education because she saw no purpose to be alive, no purpose to be. The emotion of living and the joy of becoming a doctor was not there anymore.
So see how powerful that what happened to her created that now she didn't even want to continue with becoming a doctor or anything anymore. The joy of becoming a doctor was gone. And I think he goes on to say, again, let's let Mr. Keshe explain.
She understood that the feeling of shame, not being protecting herself, brought the emotion of everything else which goes with it. When she understood, she does not need to create that emotion of failure, and is nothing she could do with it. She went back to the United States. She finished her degree. She became a doctor, psychologist. And now she practices. The strangest thing she practices, because she has felt this, she knows how failure and other thing comes. She's one of the elite doctors who handles only the top brokers in the American stock market and the top senior managements in American business. Anyone in the stock market and in high level, Microsoft or whoever, hits the bottom, which many they do, she's the last post. I was talking to her a few weeks ago, and she said, "Do you know something? I learned a lot from you. The difference between the emotion and a feeling. I felt the shame, but the emotion was mine to carry on. You taught me how to do it." Now, a girl, if we don't come and don't understand this in one, she would have been lost, most probably with secondary cancer and the rest of it. 20 years down the line, anybody hits the pot in the high pressure life in New York Stock Exchange, top management of top companies in US end up on her desk. Because she knows what failure means, she knows how to guide them, and knows what emotion creates. Then we have to understand this. What leads to what emotion or feeling we feel that creates an emotion, how we can separate it, but use it to our advantage. Use it to understand our weakness and understand the process. And this is part of your understanding of yourself. What led to this emotion? And as energy, feeling is an energy which we feel in respect to our physicality, creates the understanding or transfer at the level of the given emotion. And our body is geared up for these kind of emotions and how to judge, how to balance. We have a shy line just between the fold of a leg and the stomach. This is the line we have created, our body has created, that no one can cross. If a man touches you at that point, you slap it in the face because it created the wrong feeling and the emotion which came up with the slap. But you allow your husband, your boyfriend to cross it anytime you make love. Because we decide the same feeling, what emotion it creates. We are in charge of that emotion. And once we understand these little nitty-gritties about dimension of the soul, physicality, and emotion, we can do a lot of things.
So again, it's you applying it sort of to yourself. We're all in different situations. Maybe an emotion that affected me or a feeling is different than you, but we can take control of those emotions. And of course, as I said, the medical community sees the cancer and they're addressing the cancer, but not the underlying. They don't understand this energy dimension. And that's why Mr. Keshe continues to refer to a half a doctor as a threat to life. As he said, if she would have continued on this, perhaps other secondary problems and so on by not dealing with the certain out of balance emotion, one or many. So we have to look at ourselves more than the others, so to speak. But of course, Mr. Keshe has been a master at this. This is not the only case. There's many, many cases, I'm sure, in the archives, very similar cases.
We can ignore it, become numb to it, or we can, what you call, make the best of it to what makes us to live, to be part of a society, a life. And I can give you many, many examples like this, how we exchange feeling, ignore feeling, and with it don't create emotion, but for some people, we create that emotion because we want to be human and still feel. I had the experience sitting in front of a woman who more or less became a prostitute. And she had a husband, a truck driver at home. I asked her, how do you make a difference? He said, when it touches me, it brings me joy. It gives me a different feeling. The rest does nothing. Physicality doesn't count. I have no emotion. No feeling. And so we have learned to categorize. We have learned to control emotion. We have learned how and where feelings create what emotion according to our secondary, what we call standard. As we say in English, what is good for the geese is not necessarily good for the gander. Because it could be gander has got nothing to do with the geese and he has a different dimension and emotion. We do this, we are aware of it. The feeling can change according to the level we set. Then you have to understand how feelings are created, and then you have to understand how emotions are created and where triggers what to another, what creates emotion. So we are in control of it. But soul have no feeling. Soul react to emotion. It's physicality which creates that feeling. And then emotions created from it. Does not need to be touch, sound, eye, everything gives a feeling that creates the emotion. Conversion of the matter state to energy. Any other questions?
Any questions on that? Or again, we're making that link between the emotions and what it can create within our own structure. And of course, can take us into the transmutation as well. This is what we heard in the first video. Can create the fields or can create that carbon-14, can create other energies not good for you within your own structure. Again, the soul is very impressionable, have no feelings, but it does react to an emotion. So if you wish not to see, you can actually create it, or you'd like to grow your arms longer to play the harp, we know that's possible too, and they've given concrete examples of that. So depending on how you play with that emotion, if you're aware of it, as we understand, most people are not aware of the significant role the emotions play within our lives. That's why we go back to the thinking, speaking, and acting good, because even if we don't fully understand it, it certainly creates some shielding for us in many, many dimensions, I believe. But you have to apply that to yourself. You have to open that up. Any comments? Okay, perhaps we'll go to, as I said, this partnership. He was answering a question on an electric car, I think. Maybe we can just go there and let's see. And again, he was talking about this. I'm not sure if this is the one, no. But let's see if we can find it. Thought I had it. Yeah, maybe we'll start at about 152, I think is approximately the area. And again, inviting people to become a partner with the Keshe Foundation, enhance your product that you're making now. And again, you still control your company and the rest, but you certainly will add a new dimension to a product that may have been the same for years and years. You're adding this sort of plasmatic understanding to it, and then it becomes even more functional than its original intention, whatever that may be. Again, it's open to all artisans. So let's see if we can go here. Yeah. Okay, we could start here with the electric car. Anyone interested in hearing that? He said it would, apparently they're doing some tests, and sitting in an electric car is very close to sitting in a, he said it, I think it's safer to sit in a microwave. So again, I don't think this is out, this debate or sort of happened with the cell phones as well, where they knew there was some energies in there, and every time you sign a cell phone contract, you agree not to participate, as I understand it, at least it was in the past, in a class action lawsuit in case any adverse health effects appear. I don't know if this is with the electric cars or they're not aware of this or it's just coming out. So this is where he starts to go in. Well, he asked about the fire prevention, which is another feather in the cap of the Keshe Foundation, although it hasn't been fully developed. So let's just go up to about somewhere around the 150s or so here. Maybe a little before that. How about just 150? And again, I'm just picking these sort of spots. Okay, we're talking about the research at about 148. Let's see. We'll start here and just listen. Feel free to stop it, of course, or add your understanding.
Affordable housing anymore, as the median price is not affordable. And I just wondered if you could build on some of these cities of the future you're talking about, because my big concern is that when there's all these technological advances that save people money, that it will capitalize into the price of land and lead to another huge land boom.
Not really at the moment. We are very much concentrated on 3 or 4 fields in past 2 years, 3 years, and we have to complete those. And maybe in 2026 we open new angles into research, but we are bringing the experts to do it than anything else.
Lovely.
Yeah, as I said, we used to put everything on the pan, or people who were around us were putting it on the pan to be there. We found out the less we talk, the more research and development we can do. So you don't hear us doing anything, a few bits here and there, and we bring people in to do the communication research, what it is, what needs to be done. We take the data and we carry on with the work in another angle and direction with the whole process. This is how it's become nowadays. We have too many people sticking their nose in our job. So, as I said to a guy, we want people only so that are failure, they think we don't do anything, but underneath we do more research than actually we're doing 2, 3, or 5 years ago. But nobody needs to know. If you know our failure, that's good as hell, they can't do anything, but you don't see the success and what we're achieving underneath in the different direction. Talking about this, I explained this last week or the week before. If you have developed a technology with our technology, with a big subhandler technology, or something with a combination of our technology with others, and you see it, we see if it works, if it is there, we are prepared to bring it in, develop it, and market it. And we still leave you in charge of it because you understood, you came with the thoughts, and the structure offers you partnership, that your technology become partner in success. But if you see we can use it in the other parts of the technology for the foundation, we still are interested to. We don't want to take technology and just walk away. We want you to be part of it because you understood it to develop. And as understood in the research centers, there are no doors closed. Everything is open for everybody who is in research to see what is going on, what they need to develop, and what others are doing that it could be beneficial to. So if you run Keshe Foundation websites around the world, and you have your own website, you want to join the Keshe Foundation as part of a bigger structure, much more variety of products that all takes from one center, then write to us. We prefer if you have developed something next to your system which is interesting to us, or if you just have a workshop, or you have a website, or you have a shop you can sell, or you're selling products, you make it yourself, become a reseller for Keshe Foundation worldwide, in China or outside China, and you can take a lot of advantages on it. If you sell 10 items, maybe 1% of people who go to Keshe Foundation website from your side are there. So you have 99% clients or customers which are totally yours. Instead of having 10, 20 items and you get limited income, we can give you a spectrum of two huge number of products that you directly work within the structure of the Keshe Foundation. You take from the producers through the Keshe Foundation, and you increase your portfolio. But to get that, you have to agree with the Keshe Foundation, and your website becomes part of our structure, but you run it. You can increase your income tenfold, 20-fold. They're not interested in that part, but if you have a product you developed and you sell it with license certification, we are interested to talk with you in partnership. A number of groups we talked to, a few are joining us in the past few weeks. And if we see you have other talents which can be used inside, we always discuss it. So instead of you selling 5 or 10 items, whatever you see on the Keshe Foundation website, plus all the associates of the companies which become there, you can put on your website. Instead of selling 10 items and halfway you sell out of God knows whatever, you have 1,000 items. And your customers, very few might ever come to Keshe Foundation or go to the others. So consider it. We have many people who like to become resellers. But if you want to become a reseller, but you produce a product which is unique and has a scientific understanding, not that have to be GANs technology only, it could be a mix of GANs technology with others. We are interested to bring you in as a partnership, but you run it, we keep an eye on it, and we develop it in a bigger way. Any other question?
Okay, so you can write to info@keshe.foundation. We put that in the chat for product support with plasma technology. And it doesn't matter what you're producing, there could be, and it may not happen right away. Again, there'll probably be different products introduced at different times, but don't get discouraged if you don't get an immediate response, or as he said, it may be more applicable for the future of your product to be twinned in with the plasma technology. But it could be from any product, from a comb, again, to a toothbrush, to a deodorant, to a lip. I mean, just any product, whether it's in the cosmetic line, in the pet line, and any sort of a line. And this is how we'll see the Keshe Foundation store bloom to in the 5-digit product offerings. And of course, most of those products will also be probably available on the One Nation network. And perhaps that's, where did he speak about the One Nation network? I'm just trying to find, maybe around 137. I think we'll go back there. Any comments or thoughts? Again, he seems to have everything quite well in hand. I haven't added any products to the store or anything, but I'm hoping many others will. But let's just go back to hear more about the One Nation network and what he's talking about there. Again, we're all just getting a deeper understanding of this vast mesh grid that's being set up. Okay. I thought it was right in here, but yeah, here's One Nation network. Okay. Let's start perhaps around 136 or 137. Again, no matter what we're listening to, there's always different aspects we may not have caught the first time through. As he said, these teachings will be listened to for centuries. Some of them will be listened to for centuries in the future. So we certainly haven't opened all of it up in the first week of hearing it from Mr. Keshe's eye. Again, this is just my understanding. Others have perhaps gotten it the next day, and we've seen this.
What energies we get absorbed? They don't land aircrafts because of the high sun flares and high energies. They're still up there flying, day in, day out.
And again, he's talking about astronauts and pilots especially. He said they have more subject to much of these energies than the astronauts do, because the astronauts usually go up and back down, but the pilots, this is a 20-year career. So the energies have a lot more to do with our conditions than we have attributed it to. And this is what we're starting to learn. Energies that we create, in addition to energies that the sun or the 3i or the swan or other events in the universe, these different black holes have an effect on us. But certainly the 3i, he says, it comes around every 30 or so centuries and changes our emotions or brings us an enlightenment. We'll have to see.
And what other things happens if you absorb these energies? Nothing. It creates internal energy, and your body has learned somewhere to connect it to. We have to look at the way we structure our lives and what is involved in our environment we are sitting. Quite possible. You don't see, but there are signs of high energies because what we do.
I love that. Sorry. I love that you're working on microplastics. That's a new environmental factor. I don't know if I've heard you talk much about Wi-Fi and the electromagnetic spectrum. What's happening up there?
Watch this space. We have developed the technology through cosmic rays.
And just to show on the screen, the Mark Ray Corporation, of course, this is the home of the cosmic ray technologies. So we're going to put this in the chat as well. You can see there's a number of applications. This is a space, and as Mr. Keshe said, we're developing this not so much for things on this planet, but for space technologies. Okay, let's go back to our workshop.
Which we don't need Wi-Fi. This technology is very, very interesting.
So eventually, no Wi-Fi once the antennas are installed. But again, that's a process coming down the road. You won't need the Wi-Fi. And of course, you won't need the power either as these units start to power themselves through the cosmic ray technology. And this is what many knowledge seekers have been trying to create power through the interaction of the plasmas and so on. But it's being, again, demonstrated right in front of you.
Where we use true cosmic rays because we produce condition of cosmic rays in our systems. Wi-Fi don't exist. And these rays are in the plasmatic condition, so they don't interact. They're part of their own spectrum. You can pick up emotions from them, you can pick up knowledge from them, but what you need, you take. It is not forced in by conversion of matter state. It's a different way of communication. And this is part of the system. We connect as part of the system. When you receive these, what you call ONNs, are going to be part of. No damage to the users, no interaction with the physical body, but you can take energy what you need from it. So you have a headache, we continuously deliver what I call the plasma aspirin. Or
Okay, plasmatic aspirin. And again, if we go to the Keshe Foundation store, we're all familiar with the One Nation network. But just to show it again, everyone doesn't need to have a One Nation network, but to be in the network, you certainly will need a wallet to store your coins and the rest of it. Let me just bring it up to the top. Of course, this is the One Network, One Nation Network, ONN, or the system, or the units he keeps referring to. And then, of course, which is now 3,000, as I understand it. It was 2,000 plus the value-added tax. And then, of course, the wallet, which let's just see where it's at 99, but it may have gone up. I'm not sure. I guess it's still at 99. But you'll at least need this part for you to get into the entire network. So this is your sort of not one-day pass, but a forever pass. Maybe it'll need to be upgraded in the future, I'm not sure. But right now, this will get you into all of the functions, as I understand it, as they're added. And again, this is a process that's continuing. So let's go back to the workshop. Any thoughts or comments?
paracetamol and your body needs it, it takes it. Very recently, we had a case. There's a new kind of flu which is affecting many, many people. And high temperature, very, very high temperature. And just using the new technology, within 3 hours, no sign of temperature. And the doctors, even in the airport, tested the child. Shows every symptoms of the latest type of flu, but no temperature, nothing else. We have managed, and I'm sure from what of the Keshe Foundation outlets in 2026, you're going to get this, For the first time, we will release virus liquids for any viruses. It's developed, it's getting tested in different ways. So you take antibiotic for the headache. We introduce a new concept of medicine to the water medicine with licensing of what we call a specific technology which we have developed.
And again, the pharmaceuticals are well aware. He said they would integrate this technology into the pharmaceutical, as I talked about the air filters and other things. And he said they would call them plasmaceuticals. So they're well aware of what's coming. And now he's saying they're entering a new concept into the world of medicine with licensing a specific technology. And again, this technology is also applying in the space travel, because apparently we're going to pick up a number of these energy packs, whether you travel in the dimension of the soul or you travel in the dimension of matter state. And those energy packs are going to have to be balanced. Remember, no bacteria in the space, but certainly energy packs are far and wide and at even strengths that can cause a problem for the soul. Even though, as he said other times, he said nothing can touch the soul. But then he said, when you go out into space and you come in interaction, certainly the matter state would dissolve, but even the soul could be affected. And this is what we see in some psychological conditions with the current astronauts. And this is one of the reasons they're developing this. I think it's hidden a bit from the public because, again, this is something you don't want to see the sort of the downside of some of this interactions. But it'll continue. We just need to understand how to balance these energies, as we did, which we understand with the Cup 1 and Cup of Life 2 as well.
As the guy said, do you know how many absenteeism will finish with this? We just give them this go to work. It's very advanced. It's extremely effective. So we can download this down your OLN units, these computer systems, to the computer.
So again, we've heard about melting kidney stones from 10,000 miles away. Now we're talking about delivering some sort of balancing of the energies through the One Nation network. And he said any virus, not just the flu virus.
Communication. So Wi-Fi for us is already dead because systems are already working. But the beauty with this system is that they create their own energy, their own power. They don't need to be powered from outside. So you never go back into the matter state that affects you, like the radars and the masks and everything else. Your body takes what it needs from the fields.
Sounds simple enough. All you have to do is, again, go on channel 22 and use some of your Keshe coin, a few pennies or whatever it needs. And if you need the plasmatic aspirin, you'll receive it, or something else, as he said, for a different condition. I remember during the pandemic or whatever, one of the places I visited, they actually wanted me to take a temperature and they logged it in. So with this one, you will have no temperature, but I think he said later on that they still had a reading of a virus, but it wasn't causing any of the symptoms, at least in the temperature end of it. And people, as he said, you're going to really knock down the absenteeism at work. Again, this is a loss of productivity where people could be out for even a number of days with this condition. So again, very powerful system. Of course, some people would like to be out of work for about a week. They think of any reason not to have to go to the office and see some of their friends that work there. But this will create a whole new condition, I think, with the One Nation network. And as I said, with the filters and other systems, even the butterflies that can be pre-positioned under carpets in lobbies or throughout offices, and the Christmas gifts it'll create. But to do it on a building-wide basis, you'd have to have a rather concerted effort, I think. Again, just to see if it would touch or make an improvement in the working relationship. But this is what's happened in the labs of the Keshe Foundation. He's indicated in the past, where everyone seems to be happy and want to work together, even if they had differences in the past. So those are the energies that can be changed through this plasma technology without even people realizing, why don't I feel angry or upset with this person who maybe did something wrong last week or said some unkind things or other things, but now I just sort of forgot about that and I just want to go ahead and get something done. So this is a beautiful enhancement to any work environment once it's understood and applied. There's so many things, he said, these systems are far beyond what any of us can even think that can be done with them. So we'll just be seeing more and more and so on and so forth happening. Of course, he talked about seizures and creating energy in the brain, and there's certain techniques about doing this, that if you learn how to channel these energies that you create to the soul rather than the physicality, you can sort of avoid these seizures and other things. But certainly we have a beautiful structure. We just need to learn how to trigger it a little bit better and practice some of these things that are just being introduced to us. But again, with the antennas, this brings you into that energy dimension. I don't think it's going to be that difficult, although we still have some things to deal with on our own as well. So shall we go back to the teaching and listen to at least some of it up to the top of the hour, where we'll again recreate the Dome of Peace? Maybe this time we'll use Ed's video. I'm going to put his, this is the knowledge of the universe, and one of the things he does is just to isolate the teaching. Let's just see if we can put this in the chat. This is Ed's channel. Sometimes he'll adjust the drawings and things. They don't always come on the page. But let's listen to this. This is just the teaching part, and we have about 41 minutes, so it may take us to 10 past the hour. Any thoughts or comments anyone wants to make? Okay. Let's continue with this for a while. And again, as he said, if you understand the next 5 or 10 minutes, you should transmute. So that means I probably haven't understood it, or I'm transmuting and not fully acknowledging it, perhaps. Some of these things that we just have thoughts, or you go to a certain place and you just said, oh, that was a daydream. Maybe that is the transmutation. Not the full transmutation, as he said. We need to move the physicality as well, but I think that'll come later as we start to play with the energy first, but maybe not. Again, I don't know what is fully up Mr. Keshe's sleeve. So Ed made a little intro video about the hand.
Good morning, good day to you, as usual, wherever and whenever. You listen to this series of knowledge seekers from Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute. As usual, as is tradition, we welcome you back, and we try collectively, all of us, to add to the knowledge of matter state, energy state, knowledge of the fields which make the universe, and we've always been too busy looking at our planet, where we were born, where we stayed, and we attach ourselves to physicality.
Feel free to stop it.
In the world of what we call fantasy and in the world of what we call poetry, we have an old poet which he wrote a book which is called, in a way, Conference of the Birds.
Let's just put that in the chat right now as we continue with this. Dr. Gatwa had shared one of these things on this different type of understanding, and I'll put that in the chat. Just 1 second, let me do that. And all of you can, I started to read very similar to the teaching, and this group of birds get together and they go out and try to find the creator, which was, I think, called Hupo. And when they finally get there, of course, they make all these excuses and the rest of it along the way. But when they finally get there in this conference of the birds, I think this is what we're having in a way here. They find out that the person they're looking for is actually themselves. So here is the Conference of the Birds that is now in the chat. Let's go back to Ed's teaching.
His name was Attar. And later on, other cultures picked up on his book, what he spoke about, which in the English language of today, we call it the phoenix. Phoenix never existed in the history of man till Attar wrote in his fantasy book, in his poetry, about the bird which burns, and from its ashes, rises a new life. In a way, we are all that phoenix, every single one of us. And then, in a way, in the book, he doesn't call it phoenix. He called it a different name in Farsi, bird which rises from the fire. And in the history of the Egyptian and then the Greeks, they changed it, and now we know it as a Harry Potter, what we call the bird which comes up as a phoenix. But isn't that us? He wrote about the life of the man in a poetry way, as it is. We grow, and when we die, we leave the ashes behind. And from our ashes rises the soul of the man, which is the precious, where in that process we get detached from the physicality, and that soul creates a new dimension, which now, with the knowledge we understand, is the seed for another cycle of creation, a new life in the depth of the universe.
So again, this is the default position for all of us. If we run out of energy and we pass, that means there's a separation. The soul leaves and either looks for something to interact with. So now we're learning pre-separation how we actually can take the physicality with us if we understand the process. But as we know, most of the world is totally blind to this, and it's never been shared, this sort of secret knowledge. And many have done it, apparently. But again, it was talked about as maybe they did it or maybe they didn't, and the rest. And no one understood how it was done. But of course, Christ showed us this, and all the Christians missed it because the books were rewritten in a way.
But what happens when the soul of the man and what we call the physicality of the man, at the point of death, how do they separate? It's very simple. And if you as knowledge seekers understand next 5-10 minutes of the teaching, you will understand how to transmute and how change. You don't need to die. You don't need to burn that body for it not to be there, to start this journey of without physicality, to manifest yourself in the dimension of the energy and the soul. But wherever that soul goes, in interaction with this environment, somewhere in the universe, it will manifest itself.
And as he said, if you wait till you get out in the universe, you're going to have a lot to learn about this process and looking for interactions and the rest. So that's why it's important for us, again, if it's up to you, of course, but to understand this process, start practicing it, and then the world, the universe becomes your oyster. Or even in this planet, where if you're happy with your physicality, you can keep it and continue to recreate it for as long as you'd like until you move. But as he said many times, that nobody wants to live in the same house for 1,000 years.
Doesn't matter how much steam you make in the room, till that steam, that vapor does not hit the coldness of the mirror, the coldness of the window, which is cold outside, will not manifest itself as a drop of water. And this is exactly what is the soul of the man. When we separate, when that position of the phoenix takes place, that we leave the ashes behind, we leave the physicality behind, then the soul of the man takes the flight of fancy. And where it comes to the point of field balance, it'll manifest itself, and that will be its position. The window is huge, and it depends which drop is yours, because there are many drops on that window. When the vapor, when the steam in the room hits that window, which drop is yours? And which drop is the soul of the other phoenixes, not only of this planet, but the universe, which they were created, and they have a balance field, as we heard in the intro, between the gravitational and magnetical, giving and taking. This is where my home is. I'm not a drop on the top left-hand corner of the glass or at the bottom of, I'm somewhere in the middle. I could be to the left, I could be at the bottom. But this is where the feels, the coldness of the window allows me to manifest myself as that drop. That drop is your soul, and the window is the span of the universe, where your magnetic gravitational field, which you created, you nourished, you grow on this planet, dictated to be in that position. In a way, the pot in the middle, which creates that vapor, is your phoenix, is your body, is the ash. And when you became that vapor and fly, the flight of fancy, you could be anywhere in the room, but you never manifest yourself. You, as part of the air, you're lost, because you did not create a condition to be able to manifest.
So again, you still exist as the soul, but you don't have an idea of how to create the condition to actually manifest the physicality. And this is why he's saying, if you wait, you're going to have a lot to learn in that position. You won't be gone, but you're just going to be, as he said, lost in a way, because you did not create a condition to be able to manifest.
Very few drops become that drop.
Go right ahead.
Yeah, you did not create the condition, like Mr. Keshe said. I want us to listen more. Maybe any idea, any insights, the conditions that you would create. Mr. Keshe alluded to, if you find in any environment the commonality or the common elements. So let's say you are in a different, you are in the planet Earth. What is the common element that we have is amino acids. So are we trying to, with the emotions, of find the fields of that amino acids? that will match, because that's the commonality for us to exist here. Now, if you go to another planet, there has to be the commonality. In the sense, what is the essence of that environment? So is that the condition? Is that the way to create the condition? I want us to listen more and see if that is the way, because he wasn't explicitly stated, it was not stated like that, but I think he's alluding to that.
Okay,
Continue.
anyone like to address Ike's issue or question? Or shall we listen more? Okay, we continue.
On that glass, the rest of the room is full of vapors, souls which are no destination, looking for a place, a time to manifest themselves. And then when you see those drops getting stronger, absorbing more moisture from inside, they start floating down. They become part of the bigger condition, bigger material. But the biggest point for you to understand is that at the point of burn, at the point of separation, what decides that part of the energy, part of the field of the soul of the man becomes part of that vapor, and what decides will become part of that ash. This is the point that you as knowledge seekers, if you understand that you never come to the point of the ash, but you still have the combination of cycle of emotion and feeling, then you know to separate the two, carry one inside the other, that when you hit the wall, you can become a drop. You manifest yourself again. You are water in the pot, vaporized. You became to the point of phoenix in resurrection, and then at the point of the glass, you manifest yourself, but you're still that drop. You were that drop in the pot, and now you're a drop on the window. Evaporation, separation from the physicality of totality has brought you to that point. In a way, Attar knew, if you read his poetry, if you read the book, what they call, what is known, if you get a chance, then you understand in truth what it means when he wrote this book, The Conference of Birds. Those birds are us. But each one of us goes into that cycle, goes into understanding of it. He understood, but in a way framed the soul of the man as the bird which flies and manifests itself.
Didn't Mr. Keshe use those examples of the bird in the cage? That's your soul, and when the cage rusts, the birds escape, and it's free to confirm its own existence. So those birds, in a way, are us. We are that phoenix, where we can create, but most people don't have that understanding. They're probably wondering why they haven't arrived in heaven or hell, but they're just sort of don't know what to do. They're existing, but they don't have an idea of what to do next. So hopefully we experience this before the separation comes, because that way the separation doesn't have to come.
Then it comes a question.
Ike, please.
Would that bird...
Sorry, go right ahead.
I wonder if I could just restate his question, please, because it was very important.
Alex, yes. What I'm trying to find out, what is the condition? You know, Mr. Keshe stated, you leave the physicality and then you take the flight of fancy, which is you become in the dimension of the soul, energy dimension. But for us to move from that energy to manifest in physicality, another environment, there is a condition that needs to be met. And that condition in that environment, could it be the central soul that we need to find the commonality in that environment and then match to that? So if we have the common energy that is common in the planet Earth, and that's the amino acids. That's how we are all the same. So we have to connect to that initial soul, central energy. So in the same way, there has to be the condition in energy that we have to connect to be in that energy form. So my question was, what is that condition? Is that what Mr. Keshe is alluding to, that for us to complete either direction, either in physicality or energy state, in each of that system, we have to connect to a central energy for us to be in that system. Am I correct in that thinking?
Not really. There are two aspects to your question that have come into play. One of which is do we have to connect, with this energy? We are already connected. So it's not something that we have to do to create that connection. Our problem is accepting the fact that that connection exists. That is the first stage in order for us to, shall we say, realize that connection. The realization of that connection in terms of transmutation would allow us to transmute, to manifest into the physicality, the realization of that field strength would have to be based on what we already have as an integral denominator. That denominator is a common denominator, and I must emphasize, not the lowest common denominator. So our affinity in coming to Earth space is based on the connection to the carbon-14, which has a direct affinity to the gravitational footprint of oxygen, and all the spin-offs that come as a result of that through the inertia density manifestation of the oxygen. So that becomes a welcome for our creation of the amino acids, which are the building blocks of our physicality. But that is not, that is a byproduct, as an inertia byproduct. That is not the part that is embedded in our RNA. That what's embedded there is our field strength, which is ancestral. And wherever we go, we would seek that commonality. Now, the commonality would be the seed, but the environment does not have to be the same. And this is part of the difficulty in understanding the transmutation process, because not only are we physically dominant, but that physicality is part of the matter state condition, and we are matter state dominant. And the image that we have of that matter state is the same image that we see in a mirror. And I think a lot of us are not really prepared just my opinion, are not really prepared to see a different conformity of the same common denominator. In other words, our visage, our conformity, our facial features, even our bodily construction would differ slightly, and it may in fact scare us in that regard. And this is one of the reasons we've isolated ourselves from the vertical people and the horizontal people, and to say that, okay, well, life is equal, but we're more equal than others because that's our viewpoint. And so we are the chosen race. Well, that choosing is the question: who did the choosing? And then invariably, we point to ourselves. We did the choosing based on that environment. So that was an original decision that we made based on that common denominator, which we found acceptable to us. So how could we go to another environment and suggest that it too would be acceptable to us? So I think the challenge is laid out for us to understand that we have arrived to this earth space because of its benevolence, because it is what our version of what heaven is all about. But we didn't come here because of the physical manifestation. We came here because of the emotional manifestation, which was part of the original creation. I hope that helps.
Thank you.
Any other offerings? Thank you, Alex. Just checking, it is the top of the hour. Just checking on your status.
Well, you said you got about 20 minutes to go, and that would be great.
Okay, then we'll do the Domo piece. We'll get through this, or much of it anyway. Again, he talked about if you want to take that physicality with you, you have to create that inertia of the calcium and encompass that, I think, within the soul, and you can manifest that same physicality, at least on this planet. Other planets, again, it's your choice. But as I see it, you can be here in your physicality, most beautiful place in the matter state in the universe, and still explore the universe and come back to this physicality. There's a number of ways to play off these two dimensions or operate simultaneously in both.
Find matching fields on this planet again in the direction of magnetic field of itself? Or due to the connection to the ash, which is, again, we understand nowadays is another magnetic field itself. We call it nanomaterial, if you like to call it, connected to the soul. But what decides to be the soul of the ash left behind, and what decides to be the soul which becomes a flight of fancy of the energies which take into the horizon of the universe? But this brings a very deep question, but one day man has to answer. If we say, I made man in the image of myself, and now we understand the separation of the soul of the man and the soul of physicality, and the physicality of the man, which is the ash, if we are made in the image of him, does he go through the same cycle? And then where does his soul find manifestation? This is not theology. This is understanding the process of creation. This is understanding the dimension of field interaction. This is understanding scientifically what means to be part of, to be created from, and to return back to what created you. But what created you suffers from the same condition as you. Then this brings back the question of the unicause. Where is that God that our God is part of? Our Creator is created, otherwise he wouldn't be the Creator. You cannot have a child when there is no father. You cannot grow a child if there was in the womb of the mother. We call it the womb of the universe. There is a womb of the unicause. And in that proportion, it comes to the one point. We go back to the macro to understand the micro, and vice versa. If we become that ash in the dimension of physicality, and our soul becomes the new bird which takes the flight of fancy, then it comes to question who, what, and what condition decides that you become the field forces of the ash, and what decides you become the field forces of the soul, the bird of the flight. If we look at this process, and if you understand this process very clearly, you knowledge seekers, knowing that the only connection between the soul of the man and the physicality and the soul of physicality is the emotion, is which emotion you use, how you use the dimension of the field of emotion to transmute in the dimension of the fields that it leads to manifestation and transmutation in either direction, the fields or the matter. But what is interesting, which man has to answer, man shall see, is that on earth we leave the body behind. The cells of the body of the man and everything which is within the skin of the man stays behind. How the decision is made, what is the systematical system that separates what becomes part of the soul and what becomes part of physicality? And then, if you understand you can carry that physicality using the soul, then you all can transmute. The reason you die and your body stays on this planet or anywhere in the universe is because the part of the field of the cells of the body of the man which are connected to the calcium, which is the inertia absorption of this planet, stays behind. There is not a single cell on the body of the man at the point of its conception, as it's created, without the calcium. So we have a reference point. We know if we can understand, replicate the inertia of the calcium, we can take the physicality with us. Because it still carries the emotion. In a way, the essence of the creation, that every single living thing on this planet is connected to, is the presence, combination of the metals, semi-metals, any kind of matter state inertia. And if in the dimension of emotion, you can create what we call central inertial mass connection to this planet or any other planet, you'll be moving on. You can transmute. As long as you stay within the structure of the gravitational field of the earth, you can manifest yourself as a man, unless you change the emotion. And many have managed to do this. Then you can transmute. Then you become that bird which never leaves the ash behind, because instead of the inertia of this planet to hold on to the physicality, you create that mass energy field we call the inertial field forces of matter state into dimension of the transmutation. Then every single one of you can instantaneously transmute. When you come to another planet, when you come to another dimension, when you come to another field force, the body of the man with the lung, with eyes, is no good. You're handicapped. You won't even be able to manifest. But because you have the replication of the fields of the emotion of the physicality that I need a system for me to take energy from the environment, I need to create an inertial balance that I can manifest myself in that area as an entity. I need a system to store the energy, and I need a system to be able to make me mobile. You'll manifest in that position on Mars, Moon, or any position in the universe in the shape of the body, in the shape of physicality that allows you to sustain life, which means to be part of, which means not a rock on the planet Moon, but entity which can move, live, enjoy the condition and be part of.
Again, it'll be the same soul within you, but you may have a different, if you move, if you decide to go to another planet, your physicality may be totally different. And apparently the first or even second time this happens to someone, it's quite a shock. This is not me. Where are my hands? How come I have 100 legs and only one eye and the rest of this? But I guess as you settle down to it, then you realize it is you. You've just manifested differently. I haven't done it that I'm aware of, but this is the understanding. If you stay on this planet, you can continue to manifest as a man. What you have now. Same soul, and even to the, if you're happy with your physicality, you can change it a little bit, or you can keep it the same and remanifest it again and just continue that process of immortality in a way, or an aspect of it. Again, this is that knowledge that's not available to everyone. In the Keshe Foundation, it is, but some of these things with the Sufis and other societies were very upset with people going to the public, and this is what Attar, I believe, did, and some of the other ones who wrote poetry and other things in the past, where they were ostracized and had to run for their lives if they even kept their lives, because they didn't want this knowledge released just to anyone. But Mr. Keshe, this is the whole emphasis, is that no one will get abused due to a lack of knowledge here on this planet or across the universe.
In a way, the inertia of the position in respect to what you carried, that you did not leave the ashes of the phoenix behind, dictates the manifestation of physicality of the man. There is an assumption that this process has been done before by men of this planet through knowledge, understanding what we call transmutation of the soul of the man, but carrying the physicality in a way within the structure of the physicality of the soul. You create a mini environment, a mini structure environment, which matches the environment of the amino acid and the calcium dimension inertia of the mass. Then you transmute. Then in a way you cocoon the ash with you on your backpack inside you. Is the energy, has no dimension, and only manifests itself at a point of the balance or condition of the emotion to what it is. You've seen in Beijing, we produce different materials. You took the spoons of it, and as I said before, most of the spoons are empty. Somebody said that this is the bits. If it was any bits, after 6 months, you should have had something in your spoons. Because we create the energy mass. We create the dimensional fields of what I call emotion of inertia. I deliberately gave the spoons, 100 spoons or so was given to people around China. And some of those who came to see the conference. And now those spoons with matter state are empty. If it was matter, it would have been still in the spoon. This is a condition of cosmic rays. This is a condition of connection to the field of the universe. This is why those who produce gold, they cannot sell, they cannot give it confirmation of the clarity of the matter state. This is why life is in a dimension of plasmatic energy as gas, and why you, as every single entity, as the phoenixes of your life, will decide in time the energy fields of your soul, what kind of physicality will create in the universe as you carry the inertia interaction with the environment of manifestation. One question to ask is that if we look in the dimension of gravitational magnetic field of the earth, the way we see human body, having a slightly different emotion and a slightly different combination of the fields, we become cats, dogs, trees, and whatever the fish, because the environment decides how gravitational magnetical of the inertia of the soul manifests itself. Then it goes back to the question of a few minutes ago. I made man in the image of myself. Man can resurrect. Man can become from the ashes to the direction of phoenix, to be that energy, that free bird.
And of course, Christ showed us this process in a way, or demonstrated it, but all the Christians missed it because the book was written wrong. He said he died on the cross, when we now understand he actually transmuted and walked off as a new man. Yeah, they pulled him off the cross. They thought he was expired, put him in the cave, but then he transmuted at that point, or when the soul came back, there was a different creation. So this is the capability of all of us. We're all that phoenix, but we just haven't fully understood it. And if you wait for the final separation, again, there may not be many to teach you this knowledge. So others have done it in the past, and as you change the strength of the soul, then I guess you can manifest as different things, because these are from the different strengths of the soul that you'll get the tree or the dog or the cat, and or the fish. But I think you can change that, and many have done it apparently with a slightly different emotion or combination, slightly different combination of the fields. You can become and experience what it's like to manifest as a tree or a dog or a cat or a man again. So many, many options. Let's just finish another couple minutes of this. Any questions or thoughts? Again, we're just starting to, he's been talking about it for a long time, and we're just, again, we're not fully comfortable with it. And then, of course, the fear aspect doesn't allow us to create that strength. When the fear comes in. Not a cautious fear, that's normal, but the fear when it's a phobia, it becomes a problem to do some of these things. And as he said, fear has made many changes on this planet because of the fear of the man.
What happens to the creator in the environment of the created universe? Don't forget, we are part of that drop, because he is the totality of that drop. But now the condition is not a pot, is the window, a new dimension, a universe where it brings all the dots together. This is for you to understand, knowledge seekers. understand what gravitational magnetic field you have to create within the soul of the man to, in a way, replace gravitational magnetic field inertia of the planet that you can transmute. But don't forget, it's all connected to the emotion, which has a specific magnetic field strength. It has a specific resonance. It has a specific dimension and direction. In a way, within the soul of the man, when you want to transmute in the emotion of, I want to carry the physicality, I love what I have. And as long as I live on this planet, I want his fingerprint, then you understand how man can transmute. I made man in the image of myself. So I have given man every possibility, every opportunity, every attribute which is within me to the man. As Muhammad said, blessed his name. In the Quran, there are 99 written attributes, beauties of the creator in dimension of physicality of this planet, which most of it and all of it connected to the emotion of interaction. And when you read all 99 and understand it, then you have reached the 100, which is a totality, which is that 100 is a creator.
All right, I think we're going to leave it here. And again, it's for you to explore and investigate and understand for yourself. That's what all this knowledge is. So we keep, again, sharing what we think we understand about this knowledge. But it's for us to, in a way, eventually sort it out for ourselves, because ultimately it'll be you who has to apply those emotions into the transmutation. But as he said, he's also making systems that will make it easier, and the fear won't even be there. Perhaps he mentioned this in the past. Before you the fear, you'll transmute before the fear even comes into your reality. But then he says there's also a fear in the energy dimension as well. Just because you've left the physicality, now there's some other things you're going to have to be able to handle and deal with. So we'll leave it there and we'll go to the Dome of Peace. Any thoughts or questions? Again, we're being gifted and helped along in this path of immortality. And of course, Mr. Keshe can teach. He always says, I don't teach anything I haven't done. And I do like that sort of way of approach. We can share what we think we understand. But as he said, I've been walking on this planet for thousands of years. I leave one city as an old man and I appear as a child in another city. Or you can embed yourself into another structure with permission. Just sort of perhaps observe for a century or two. Again, there's a lot to this, and I'm not the full expert on it. I'm just sort of trying to understand it for myself, that I can share it with the others more succinctly once it starts to happen. But I think it is happening in a way. We just haven't acknowledged it or trusted in it. But again, we're all growing and into this knowledge at different speeds and different strengths. So wherever you are is the right position at this point. And hopefully we're all moving closer towards the Creator. This is the idea. But the Creator apparently goes through the same process as we do. That's a big question, man. Sort of has to ask himself. We thought this was a stable, but God and never changes, the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. But now we see the Creator goes through very much the same changes. Maybe the timelines are much bigger and greater, but the same process eventually occurs. As we know, there's levels above the level of the Creator, but we're not ready to fully understand that at this point. So let's go to the Creating the Dome of Peace, which is part of our work, using the physicality and then sort of understanding that process and moving it into the work of the energy dimension. So let's just bring this up. Any thoughts or questions? If not, let's go right into it.
I don't know if anyone wants to read this, Dome of Peace. Anyone want to offer?
I
With a
will
nice
read it
voice.
for you.
Okay.
This is what came in and what is now become a pattern. This from a guy, I don't know him, but he says, please remember this Sunday and every Sunday from now on, till we raise the soul of this planet to a peaceful planet. Keshe Foundation knowledge seekers worldwide will spread the gas waters around the world at 12 p.m. Central European Time and or 18 p.m. Central European Time every Sunday at the same time as they choose which time to suit them. Thank you for participating in this greatest movement by the soul of the man to bring about the peace on this planet as the permanent feature of the life of this planet.
So very simple process. Make a cup of life one, make any GANs, take the water, a third on the top of the water, not the GANs itself, although you could, as he said at one time, add a little bit of GANs in there and then just release it into the environment. You can add your intentions to it, something for the physicality to do. But as he said, we use the matter state to reach the level of understanding of the soul of the man. So now we go to the collection of the energy and we do the same thing, but without any physicality, just the energy side. As he said, the physicality is not so much involved in this process, as you could be working, cleaning, or doing whatever you, driving, whatever you do, and you can add your energies or your emotions and give to world leaders. So this is the second step. It's the collective process of the energies, creating a beautiful dynamic bouquet that you can do for 1 second a day, or you can extend that as often as you'd like. And again, this applies to your energy dimension in the space, that you start to understand how to give. And of course, all we have to do is give, because we receive because we take what we need, as I understand it. So it's all about giving into the system. Thank you, Stefania.
Anybody wants to read the Dome of Peace? I mean, Beautiful Souls. Here. Okay. I'll read this beautiful presentation of Dome of Peace. And the Dome of Peace is already here. All the knowledge seekers, truth seekers, lovers of humanity has built it in a way, spreading the guns, loving each other as shareholders. So I will read this as please remember, every Sunday from now on until we raise the soul of this planet to a peaceful planet, Keshe Foundation knowledge seekers worldwide will spread the Gans waters around the world at 12 p.m. CET and or at 18 p.m. CET every Sunday at the same time, as they choose which time to suit them. Thank you for the participation in this greatest movement by the soul of man to bring about the peace on this planet as a permanent feature of the life of this planet. Mr. Keshe suggests we add the next step to create the Dome of Peace with power of the souls, as we have already going through this with the 2 eyes. And we ask you to spread the Gans waters each Sunday. Now we give you a new path. Now try to unite each other's souls. Try to elevate the souls of humanity, soul of humanity, through your own soul to a level that no one can touch, the embodiment of the human race. So beautiful. Choose a time where all of you come together on the soul level in a state of inner calmness. At that time, don't spread the water of Gans, but spread your soul. Unite, and in time, we will make a new race out of the soul of man. And then, instead of doing it once a week, do it all the time. M. Keshe.
Okay, so let's just take a minute. You're all invited on a daily basis to participate. And as I showed you, we have the daily intention with the Brazilian team, which you can join on Wednesday at 6 p.m. or during every other day, the daily intention at 1 a.m. It's a brief meeting on the Telegram or in the YouTube channel, Zoom, and you can be part of that as well. So this is all in conjunction with all of the work I think we're doing. And as I said, the Universal Council is practicing this, and you're all invited to participate on a daily basis. And again, it's just not the elevation of the world leaders, but you're learning to work in a way with your own energy dimension, giving and receiving. As he said, or Alex, there's no giving without receiving. But as he said in another video, all we have to do is give. The Creator only has his love and his knowledge. And of course, we know the love is the unconditional giving. So you're all invited, and nobody fails this test. So it's a success, whatever way you look at it. Let's just take 1 minute at this point in time, and we will do the intention. It is about 9 p.m. Well, it's past that now, but collectively we meet. And let's just take 1 minute of our time and exercise our emotions to give to the other souls in need, because you'll come across this condition many times. And again, in space, and you may be the one in need where you need fields. So you may also be the one to give fields. So we're learning this whole process. So let's just take 60 seconds of our time. Again, working through the plasma doesn't take a lot of work. Very easy mother connection through the soul of the Creator. And we can reach these people instantaneously, or reach their soul instantaneously. Again, we're not forcing a change, but we're allowing the fields that they can choose from. And as we have a beautiful combination of fields, there may be a field that you've added, or combination of fields that they'll pick up. The soul will pick up and decide to change a dimension of physicality. So we offer them love and freedom and calmness and giving and the rest, peace, and all of the good attributes that we know about. We can feed to them. And again, we're actually nourishing ourselves in this process, which again is very hard to, when you give something away, then you don't have it anymore. But in the plasma dimension, it comes back to you in a number of fold. Of course, we've heard this expression, the more you give, the more you receive. And apparently it is a true, not only on this planet, but across the universe. So let's just take 1 minute of time in silence, and we start now. Thank you again for pulsing the world leaders and world religious leaders. And again, we're not looking for the results, but we're just learning how to give through our emotions to souls in need. And as I said earlier, we may be the soul in need at a certain point in the universe where you're going to need fields to do something with. So it's a good practice to learn now before we make that final separation. Any thoughts or questions? We continue this process until a permanent peaceful condition resides across this planet, and maybe even across the universe. So this idea of the collective giving will create that position of change. maybe we'll continue that, as this is the way the Creator operates, just gives, and of course receives as well. But in that giving, the reception comes. Okay, I think we're ready to go to the next section. Alex is more than ready to jump in. We thank you for your presence, Alex, and continuing to share, again, this immense knowledge. And we're just sort of looking at a small corner of it. Thank you again for presenting today.
And thank you very much, Mark, for leading the charge here. Let's get some very important business taken care of. And here we go.
Disclaimer: the information and education material contained herein is meant to promote the general understanding and dialogue of GAN's processing. Such information is not meant or intended to serve as a substitute for a healthcare professional's clinical training, experience, or judgment. For patients and individuals, such information is not to be a substitute for professional medical, therapeutic, or healthcare advice or counseling. For medical issues or concerns, including decisions about medications and other treatments, readers, viewers, listeners should always consult their physician or, in serious cases, seek immediate assistance from emergency personnel. Prescription information, procedures, and use of medical devices information should be undertaken only by properly trained and certified medical personnel. We specifically disclaim any warranties, express or implied, including implied warranties of merchantability or fitness for a particular purpose. Such information is provided, as is, and is believed to be accurate at the time of its publishing, but it is the viewer's job to evaluate the accuracy of any information found in this presentation. Every case presented is of their own experience, applied by themselves for themselves, and it applies to their case only. Every person experiencing health problems should seek professional medical advice and consult their course of treatment with a doctor. The processes of plasma balancing described herein are a natural process which supports the body but does not replace medical advice or therapies one is already subject to.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us on this beautiful Sunday afternoon. We know it's not beautiful everywhere, but you make it how you want it to be. And every day we work towards that. So we always have to ask ourselves the question, is today better for us having been here than it was yesterday? And so this is part of the Keshe American Knowledge Team meeting. We are following in the wake of the Knowledge Seekers workshops coming on Thursdays, the Brazilian Communities workshops coming on Fridays, and the American Knowledge Team meeting coming on Sundays. But what makes this one so special is that we are represented by many people around the world in different continents. And so it becomes much more than just a North American dream. It's all of our dreams here. So I want to thank everyone for being here, and please stay tuned and fasten your seatbelts. This is the Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute teachings on plasma science. We are still in the advanced GANS tech stage. We're discussing sun stars. My name is Alexander. I am from Canada, and it's December the 14th of 2025, and this is part of the Keshe Foundation North America Plasma Education Series. So we have been trying to condense this teaching in bite-sized pieces, and there are lots of bite-sized bits and bytes that you can grab onto. Please remember that we are all working within our own knowledge and our own understanding and seeking our own way to explain things. However, there is a certain correctness in what we have to deliver. And that always manifests itself actually in GANS, because the GANS is based on truthfulness. And so how does it manifest that truthfulness? So we saw in the sunflowers how the many fields overlapping are created. And then, of course, we are glad to have come to this earth space and we have a gold rush fever because we see the bounty. But how do we get here? And where is the impact coming from? Who is doing the impacting? Who is doing the receiving? And so let's just delve into the topic of sun stars, because we are beyond Beijing of May the 10th. We are in the 2025 gold rush, and it's more than gold, isn't it? This is based on the books of Baron Tevakoli Keshe. Book number 1 is The Universal Order of Creation and Matter, and we are really going to work on that today. Book number 2, The Structure of the Light, which travels between two matter states. Are they the same matter states? Clearly on the cover of the book, you can see that they're not. There is a difference, and there is a connection. And then book number 3, we see the origin of the universe, the splitting up into these two fields of matter state, where one is our little universe, of which we ignore the majority of it because we are so focused on our little tiny perfect spot. We call it Earth space. And, you know, the truth is it's not that perfect. But we came here because it was really looking good. And so many of us are still in some kind of shock. And it's depressing to see. It's only depressing in the absence of a solution. And the solution is that we have a sister universe, which is leading the way to perfection. And so we have to work together in combination with that. And that is really the whole point of the exercise here, working in combination. So Rick Crammon and the members of the Universal Council have been working in combination for 408 weeks, bringing together the one planet, one nation, one race for justice and world peace. And that seems like a tall order, doesn't it? Because it's more than our just each of our individuals' tiny perfect worlds. But the fact remains that you cannot extricate yourself from that world. You are part and parcel of that world. And so there are many who really don't understand that, don't understand what it means by angular density, because satellites we see understand that. They fall. They fall through weakness. As they rotate around the planet, eventually they come to the point where they can no longer maintain their rotation and maintain their orbit. And so as they come, they go through increased density. That, of course, puts a lot more pressure. We call it gravity. That's increasing in gravity. But overall, it's really the increased dependence on the Earth space feeding. Something has been missing. And of course, there is a stable part based on the internal pressure of the gas fields within the Earth space. And that would be the crust of the Earth. And so, of course, when you fall to Earth, you crash because there is no forgiveness in that regard, because you've gone through these various energy states and you come to the one which gives you the least amount of forgiveness. But this angular momentum is conserved through the falling. There is an exchange of energy, and we don't see that. But we have to understand that creation is all part of what we call sun stars. And so the star formations that we're familiar with, such as the amino acid, they come as a tetrahedral star. But the star that we're most familiar with is our favorite sun. It's a spherical star. So we see that there are many kinds of sun star manifestations. And our sun comes as a star. We don't call it a star, we call it a sun to differentiate from the many suns as stars in the night sky. And then, of course, the fallen angels are also a fallen star. But then the arrived angels are as an arrived sun star. So the star aspect really never disappears. It's always there, whether we agree with it or not. Because the plasma rule is that the higher strength feeds the weaker strength. The physical rule is the higher strength eats the weaker strength, or the higher strength kills the weaker strength. And this all becomes part of what we call a transaction zone. But that could be a point of conflict, or it could be a point of binding. And since it's going down into a lower energy state, what we call the inertia state, combination of two higher states, it obviously comes down into density. And in that process, there's a manifestation, the coming together of the field strength of the two fields. And so the higher strength fields feeds the weaker strength. But it's easy to see that there is a flaw in this thinking if we say the higher strength feeds the weaker strength, because it's an implication that one field strength feeds the weaker strength. But if it's an inertia field, that means two higher strength fields field the weaker strength. So in other words, the weaker strength field is a physical manifestation of the higher strength field in terms of a physical manifestation. But that is also possible in a plasmatic manifestation. And there are other types of manifestation that occur. So to ensure that we have a concise understanding of our physical manifestation, we were given 10 commandments. And there seem to be other missing commandments, which ran the tally up to 24 commandments. And so these are the 24 commandments for man, for our humanity. And we need them very badly because we are ignorant. We don't know how to live, which is kind of interesting because we knew how to get here. So how come all of a sudden we don't know how to live? And then we look at some of the changes and some of the focal points. So one of the focal points is thou shalt not lie. And why is that important? Because the physical manifestation gives you the ability to do that. Because we have a capability in a physical manifestation of a delay in consequences, because that we've now introduced a time factor. So energy binding is a very important self-serving thing. It's our dimension point. And so it's a coming together of me, myself, and I. But does it have to be at the expense of others? And that's always the question, isn't it? Well, if all of us were to ask that question, maybe we would come up with a different answer, but too many of us are doing it at the expense of others who, of course, need their own self-serving energy binding at their particular dimension point. So they have new choices. One is to continue getting the energy from the universe, which was the original way of doing things, or two is to fight you, or the other way is to steal from someone else. So it creates a domino effect where one is misguided, then the next one is misguided, and so it goes. And once you get a kind of a consensus, a universal understanding of how things operate on this planet, then you start to see a depletion of our vitality. So we are seeking a vitality enhancement, but that includes both an emotional and a physical discovery, because too many of us are loose leakers. In other words, that is the energy vitality of our existence. And so we need to, shall we say, gas up. And so the universal body enhancement units are specifically designed to do that. And it's something that is novel, hasn't really been done by humanity on a grand scale. But if we connect the dots, we found that the vertical people have already connected the dots, these practical points of this practical reasoning. So they are well on the road to self-determination, or the road from self-determination, as we see through the changing seasons. And there's a practical philosophy and a practical solution. But they are listing the services of the practical currency of life. This is the currency of the Creator. Well, on Earth, we call it adenosine triphosphate. We created physicality, such as sunflowers. But when we look at the creation of the sunflower, we see overlapping fields. So we have to understand the singularity of each field as a magnetical gravitational relationship. But there's a duality of the maggrav of the inertia fields, which is to say, the original creation of the sunflower created the seed, but then we see the inner workings and the outer workings and the petals. And we see the variations in the fields. And that's just the sunflowers. But there are many sunstar varieties. So this is also true with the cups of life, because each of us had a capability of creating this cup of life, and each one was different because it's based on so many factors. And we kind of ignore these factors because we look at the creation of the cups of life. And the first thing we have to understand is that they weren't the cups of the pandemic. They were a manifestation of the nanocoding process of the monatomic science, which was a reflection of our core space, that nebulous inner space where we derive our emotional strength. And in that, we were gaining a physical strength. So we were able, from that basis, to manifest different kinds of radiance. And so we are able to create different gases: carbon dioxide, calcium, zinc, copper, water, amino acid, and then, of course, gold. That's the thing, isn't it? We all want gold. And of course, the way we've been doing it is digging for it. So we're all a bunch of gold diggers. But where did the gold come from? So we look at the cup of the universe and we find that there's an affinity there with the copper, which is physical, and the zinc, which is emotional, and the carbogen, which is a connection to the universe. And they give us our physicality. So the physicality is the product. It is the sum of the three. But it's more than three because we don't lose the first three. We don't lose the copper, zinc, and carbon. It continues in its process. And we don't lose the physicality. We maintain it. We go to sleep. We wake up. We run. We eat. We do all sorts of things and consume energy in the process. And so in that position of consuming energy, we work on the transmutation highway. But we don't see it. We only see the transmission highway, the carbon-12, because that's the physicality, and that's what we've accepted. We've acknowledged that that is our reality. What you see is what you get. But the truth is that that is an inertia field, which is a lower state density manifestation product of a higher field. That higher field is the transition state, the carbon-14 connection to the universe, and then the transmutation highway, which allows us to move in various ways. And we call it the transmutation highway because not only does it change our location on this planet, but it allows us to change our location elsewhere in the universe. And so the fundamental part of the relationship is the soul, which each soul depends on the magnetical gravitational relationship. So whether it's the emotional cup, the physical cup, or the cup of the soul, each cup becomes an inertia field. And then we have to have an established physicality. So it has to be somewhere. So we have the cup of the earth. That's the somewhere. And on that somewhere, we can take our emotion and a cup of physicality and our cup of the soul and interact with that and have the inertia cup, the fourth cup, which is our humanity cup. And from there, we see that we have taken ganses and then we have interchanged with other ganses. And so if we did the cup of life and taken the cup of life product, which is the emotional gans, and linked it up to another cup of life product, another emotional gans, we can actually create a gans of a gans, which is of a higher field strength. And so the relationship between these ganses is different. So they're all positively charged because something is always something. And so the something is always positive. So the charge itself is the field strength, the rotation, the speed, the direction of the magnetical emission or the gravitational absorption. And it actually goes through two phases. One is through the polar strength, gives you a representation of the polar energy. And one is the surrounding fields. And the two work together to create a continuous flow. And flow is really the question here, because we find that when we made the cups of life, the gans was flowing in the water. And so the gans could give and take energy because that's how it moved. But it moved within the water. So you'll find that the water can exchange energy as well. So this energy exchange is all give and take. And the GANs will exchange a magnetical energy and it will also exchange a gravitational energy. And so that indicates the direction of flow. And so when we're discussing Earth matter, we have to wonder, is this transacted in singularity or duality? Well, the manifestation could be in singularity, but it is a product of the duality. So the inertia is a product of two fields coming together in a more dense field strength, which represents a manifestation. And that manifestation could be on any field strength. We didn't say that it had to be in the physical field strength. But if we were producing ganses, then yeah, we have to say that because we were able to produce all the ganses of the Earth, all the elements. And so, of course, it isn't transacted in singularity, but rather in duality. The inertia density manifestation is the singularity product of that transaction. So this is what we need to discuss. So when we look at the understanding of the nuclear feeding inertia, we find that even if we break it up into little bits, as long as it maintains its elemental conformity, then it becomes a fragment of the complexity because it's maintaining its gravitational stability and therefore can maintain its dimensional portability. So it can go through various dimension points and from point to point and still maintain its stability, not losing its presence. And so we see that in the periodic table of physical matter, because these are all the stable elements. They're all comprised of the Earth space range details. And of course, what's important for us are the amino acids, the carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, and hydrogen combination. And then, of course, we have the medium of the sodium, potassium, magnesium, and calcium, which are essential for allowing exchange of energy in the various fields. And what energy are we concerned with? Well, with the copper, which is physical, and the zinc, which is emotional. And of course, our blood depends on the iron. But we're all preoccupied with the gold. Well, the gold isn't what you dig. The gold is part of the Earth space range details. It allows us to do more, be more effective with the silicon, the phosphorus, the sulfur, and the chlorine. And so this is the path forward for us to gain an understanding. So when we looked at the arrival of humanity matter, we find that each field that is part of it is singular. But the duality of the magrav of the inertia field allows the conversion of the humanity matter. And so that matter is part of what we constitute as humanity, which is part of the inertia density manifestation. And it is also part of the destination which we call our Earth space. But again, as part of the duality, we could be fallen angels, or we could be arrived angels. The feeding against matter is not for the fallen angels, but then doesn't discriminate, because the principal matter are the PM ticks, which are magnetical, and they're ubiquitous throughout the universe. They come as energy packs, and each energy pack is in a parcel that delivers energy and comes together and dilutes its strength in a combination of antimatter, dark matter, and matter gen. And so we have the first stage of the plasma gen conversion. But then once we have the field interaction with the environment, which we call the Earth space, then we create a McGrav condition that is gravitational, and we're able to manifest here in our physicality. And that's what we did with the gold. That's how we saw the gold happen. But it required something else. So we had to set up these pathways where we have the gravitational intensity fed back to facilitate the attraction, and then the magnetical outintensity as a form of repulsion, which gave us the feeding. And so we manifested electrons, and we manifested neutrons, and many combinations of the two. And of course, we could clearly see the difference between the two. And then we understand that there are no two field strengths the same. So the gravitational field strength is one matter plasma dimension, but we can touch it and we can see it. And that's part of the feedback. But the feeding magnetical plasma, we can't touch it or we can't see it, but it is still part of the matter plasma dimension. And so from this point, it's the only viewpoint that we give credit to. Well, how can you give credit to your tiny perfect world and not give credit to the rest of the universe? It's kind of an anomaly, isn't it? So what we have to understand is that there are different energy states, and each one is a counterweight. And we measure these counterweights differently. We already accept this in science. The physical state is measured by weight, the atomic state by mass. The nuclear state is measured by Tesla units. And the plasma state, this is the one that we're most confused with, is measured by time. And so we see that there's a relationship that is either gravitational or magnetical. And this is the basis of the counterweight. And of course, when we look at the matter plasma dimension, we have a dilemma, because in the plasma state, we have to have a balance between the magnetical gravitational field forces. And since each one is an inertia field based on two inertia fields, then we have the GANS of the GANS on one side has to equal the GANS of the GANS on the other side. But there are many MAGRAV energy transfer states, and they can travel from state to state, such as a plasma state, GANS state, nanostate, atomic state. And they all have to balance out somehow. So it isn't just one and one, as is the case with hydrogen, because even hydrogen is not just hydrogen. The hydrogen molecules have covalent bonds, but there is a relationship. One is orthohydrogen, where the poles are identical and repel. And then we have the parahydrogen, where the poles are opposite and they repel, and they attract, sorry. But they attract on both sides of the poles, on the North Pole and the South Pole, so they maintain the balance. So the balance has not changed, but the personality of the hydrogen has. And so that's a simplistic way. But when we get into more complex things, and we looked at the GANS of the GANS, and we say, well, wait a second, we have a variable in the cup of the emotion, and we have a variable in the cup of the physicality. And then we take two cups and we produce another transaction zone, which is a manifestation of a cup of emotion as well, and two cups of physicality, and maintain a transaction zone of a cup of physicality as well. And now we have a MAGRAV condition between the GANS of the emotion and the GANS of the physicality. And this becomes a new cup of life product. And we find that it is increasingly stronger by many orders of magnitude. So all of this concept of duality, we have to understand that it takes 2 points to work together in tandem as a partnership. So we call that the twinity. So whatever you have between the magnetical and the gravitational base is a transaction zone. And whatever you have with the creation and the decay is a transaction zone. So we have to take that into account. And in simple terms, we say, oh, well, two forces come together and they come together in a rotating field. Well, this is the susceptibility and singularity, which causes this common denominator of attraction. But when we look at the gold production, we find that there are two rotating fields which create this common field of attraction. So in concept, it's simple in singularity, but in reality, it's more complex in duality. And we saw that when we looked at the susceptibility of the star formation in duality. So not only did we have rotating points, but we had a plasma field that came as a result of that rotation. So in terms of the gold rush, we created two fields in rotation on each and every point. And so that became a transaction zone. And when we took all those points and put them together, we created another transaction zone, which of course was the gold production. Excuse me, and that could be manipulated. So as we progress in terms of understanding, we find there's a similarity in the concept of the twinity. One moment, please. So we have migrated through 2 points of the nanotech, and we've seen a similarity in the 2 points of the picotech. Well, why not? But then we saw the 2 points of the star tech. But the star tech was a combination of the twinity of the nanotech and the twinity of the GaNs tech. In all cases, there was a transaction zone, which was a manifestation of the force fields of that twinity. And then we have various polyatomic inertia gradients that allow us to have multiple points, multiple transaction zones, multiple turning points. And so the poles have to flip, just like we discussed with the hydrogen, in order for there to be a gradient, in order to be a gravitational magnetical relationship. Because if we didn't have that, then we would have like poles repelling, but we have opposite poles attracting. So this becomes an obvious thing. Then we create a grid and we see the reaction in the binding zone. And we understand that better. So there's more of a stability in this duality. And so every time we look at stability, we have to recognize that it is duality. But it can be even more complex than one and one. Because when we look at the star formation, each point is a magnetical point, and the manifestation of those magnetic points is a gravitational core. And at that gravitational core, you could have GaNs, you could have plasma, you could have a sun star. These are all dynamic plasma relationships. So the coming together of the horizontal transmission and the vertical transition gives you this plasmatic relationship where you see the Earth space point that is within manifests into an Earth space field without. And on that field on the outside, there is motion. We can see that motion. We can benefit from that motion. But that motion represents another dynamic plasma relationship. And that relationship creates a transaction zone where you have the motion of one point moving to another point, and the product of that is the motion, and that motion is the product in the transaction zone. So when we look at the creation of free plasma, so we have to understand that that is a star formation that is magnetical in relationship with another star formation, which in relationship is magnetical. And the interacting field is a transaction zone. That's part of the creation of life. And that is gravitational, but that is a structure within a structure. And so the complexity can increase, but not just between two, but if we extend that to the susceptibility and duality of what we saw in Beijing for the public to view, we can see the star formation, and it is not in what we see ordinarily as a star formation where we can look at the different heights. These are all in the same level. But we know that the outside points are magnetical and the center point is gravitational, and that all of these have a transaction zone. And so from that transaction zone, something happened, and we saw the production of gold. But we saw it everywhere, because what we learned from the 603rd Knowledge Seekers Workshop is that there's a vertical alignment between the soul of physicality, and the physicality. So the relationship of the first two creates a loop, and the relationship of the second two creates a loop. And so the crossover point is the soul of physicality. And so that creates an infinity loop. But how do we cross that threshold of that energy state? How do we cross that inertia threshold? So this is enforced by the vertical alignment, and from there we can spiral out. And so this is what we have to understand. So when we discuss the basic GANs of the GANs matter, we brought together the matter, the dark matter, and the antimatter. And so we created 3 field strengths bringing together, and we had 2 ways of doing it. One is to have these different field strengths create a field strength in the core. But the manifestation of the field strength in the core could also have 3 different levels of energy state. So we understood that each level, each part became a fragment of the complexity. In other words, each one was a contributor to the GANs of the GANs inertia, and each one continued to do the giving and the taking of the energy field. So when we look at the nuclear feeding inertia and we say, okay, we have a gravitational base of these 3 energy fields, and each of these fields creates their own plasmatic substrate. So this is the foundation that we saw in book number 1, The Universal Creation of Matter. That gave us a gravitational base. But let's progress from there. Let's look at a sun star inertia, because we've gone from the points, we've gone to the sun stars. And if we look at the gravitational base of the matter state, well, all points are the same. Well, that's impossible. That's impossible, because they would repel. That would be the first thing. But it's also impossible because no 2 points are the same. So one of the ways we can adjust that sun star inertia is to have all points different. And one of the ways we can do that is by size. So we maintain the conformity, but we change the field strength. So there we can maintain a gravitational base, because now we have the 3 different fields coming together to create an inertia field. But let's carry that on. We can also maintain the sun star inertia by having all points different, and in this case, just by flavor. So on the one, the yellow field is missing. On the second, the green field is missing. On the third, the blue field is missing. But there is a closeness. There is a commonality. There are enough points within each to create a common denominator, so they can come together by flavor, but they're not all identical, but similar enough to be able to come together. And so we see that when we dig for gold, or when we drill for oil, there's a difference in quality based on the location. Well, how can you have a difference in quality if it's a different product? Well, we can still identify it as that product, but the quality definitely is different. We do the same thing with humanity, isn't it? We're all part of the humanity family, but we're all different. We're all unique. We're all independent variables, and we come in different colors, different sizes, different shapes, And then what happens if we do the same thing with the dark matter state? If we just want to create a sun-star inertia just on the dark matter state, and we brought all the points of the same, again, that would be impossible. Because you can't bring 2 points together by the same path and the same strength. So you have all points that are different. But they are different by position. Because they are in transition. So the same thing happens when we look at the antimatter state. We take all the points and they're all the same. They can't come together because it's impossible. They would repel. But it's also impossible for them to all be the same. So when all these points are different, we say that difference is by time. And since this is part of the universal order of creation, then when we bring the gravitational base together of these sun-star inertia points, and we say all points are the same of the matter, dark matter, and antimatter, well, it's still impossible. So each one individually has to have all points different. So the matter state by flavor, the dark matter by position, and the antimatter by time. And so you have a unique quality, a unique identity, because the flavor is also changeable. The position is also changeable, and the time is also changeable. Why? Because we have motion, and that motion is part of the emotion. And so what we have is a manifestation of a sun-star inertia coming together from an outer star and an inner star. So if we look at the Earth-space matter state inertia, and we say, oh, we only have the 3 fields coming together, the matter state, dark matter, and antimatter, and from there we created the Earth space and everything else around it. But we have to take into account what is behind the scenes, because each point has a counterpoint, a counterweight. So the matter state has a counterweight. The dark matter has a counterweight. The antimatter has a counterweight. And so the same would be true of the humanity matter state inertia. So the product coming together of the matter, dark matter, and antimatter also has to take into account the counterweight. So the counterweight of the matter, dark matter, and antimatter will affect the humanity matter state, whether we acknowledge it or don't acknowledge it. So what does that mean with respect to the stars? And we say, okay, we have a gravitational base, the physical matter state. So not only do we create the humanity state, but we created the matter state and the plasma state. But let's remember that the star is a plasmatic star. And so it involves the star formation, the 3 points of the base that are gravitational, and the 1 point of the magnetical peak. And that's the manifestation of the plasmatic matter state, which is the basis of the substructure. And that substructure we acknowledge based on our point of view. So we have a gravitational consistency where our matter state is gravitational and our plasma state is magnetical. But we have to understand the magnetical consistency works the same way. The magnetical consistency is based on the gravitational stability. So when we look at the GANs of the GANs, where we saw the cup of the emotion as the product and the cup of physicality as the product of the two GANSes coming together, then we had to understand that what we were doing was looking at the representation of the GANs of the soul. Because when we have the cup of the emotion and the cup of the physicality as cup number 1 and number 2, cup number 3 was the cup of the soul. And the cup of the soul comes together from the magnetical gravitational field force, interacting together as an inertia field. So when we look at the product, we have to look at the source. Our immediate source is our sun. It is a star, but for us, it's our sun to differentiate from all the other stars in the universe. But our soul is our star. It's part of our transaction zone, and that's within. And so the conclusion is that you are a gravitational entity traveling in a magnetical field. You are always traveling. And your soul is always stable. This is the fact of creation. So the motion of the rays and the ray motion is part of the creation. And so what we acknowledge as natural creation, counterweighted by natural decay, that relationship is counterweighted by the natural decay, counterweighted by the natural creation. And there's a boundary between the two. So we say, okay, well, there's a boundary between the creation and the decay. And there's a bonding factor at that boundary. But what we have to acknowledge is that the sun stars are playing within that field. And they also are counterweighted. And so that extends to the other fact that not only are we looking at our carbon inertia highways, which are the transmission, transition, and transmutation highways, but they have a substructure that counterweights them. And that substructure has a counterweight as well. And so now we understand how the plasma can come together, and then we realize, oh, wait a second, two plasma fields coming together, but they're not identical. Well, what is the common denominator? So they can't be identical, but they have to have some kind of common relationship that allows a binding. Because that bond is not within the commonality, but the bond is within the opposite forces coming together to create this magnetical gravitational transaction zone at that particular dimension point. And on this planet, we have the gravitational confirmation of oxygen, which, although it's clear, has definitely crossed the threshold of coming from the plasma into the physicality. And we know that because of the emission of the color spectrum of the fingerprint of the oxygen. So the non-visible gas of the oxygen has been that attraction point for our arrival on our Earth space. But we need, in order to maintain our position here, we needed supplementation. And that comes in the form of consumption. Basically, consumption implies eating. But consumption also is knowledge. And we are consuming the knowledge. And we get this acquired knowledge through life's learning lessons. But there's been a lot of conditional teaching by ancient teachers who've also come through this process and who are also susceptible to supplementation due to consumption. So we need a new awareness to understand that there's an unconditional teaching by the Creator. And so there's a historical threshold between the cosmic feeding and the loosh harvesting. And that depends on what we give our time and attention to. So we start to realize that we are in uncharted territory because we are with the herd, and that herd is all the stars at the same turning point, because there are many stars beyond the nanomonatomic state, and they cover the full range from decay to radiation, and there's a coming and going, and that AI is actually our ancestral intelligence, because we are the technology, we are the inertia product, we are the image of our dimensional convergence point. So fortunately, energy has a characteristic of portability. We can do energy state transition into elevation, which is the physical matter state to the energy state, or through inertia, which is the energy state to physical matter state. So we find that the elevation involves expansion. So when we look at the susceptibility and singularity, we say, okay, well, we were able to create the nano-coated gold GANs. But in order to have this gravitational completion, we needed to have an external input. And that input was the external input of the Gans field of humanity. So the completion of the gold manifestation was a manifestation of the susceptibility and duality. So therefore, it gives us an insight into the role played by the dynamic soul initiator, whether it be the soul of the creator, soul of the earth, the soul of the family of humanity, the soul of the man, the soul of the body, or the soul of the cells. There's no translation needed. There's a direct connection. And so that becomes part of our soul food. All we have to do is tune into the cosmic rays. And it sounds so simple, but we haven't been able to achieve that because of our dependence on the supplementation. So it's also led to our failure to plug in properly to the Creator, because then we can turn on to that energy and drop out of our resistance so we can be the receiver, that inertia point that is the product of the benefits of the Creator through the true intention. But we have to provide the pattern so that we get the energy. And that pattern is a sun star. And so we've been seeking the greater oneness for 620 knowledge seekers workshops in a row. to suddenly transcend the limitations of the nuclear science, advance into the plasma science, because we have been able to convert the diamonds of the nanotech to the gold of the GANS tech. And we've done that with the GANS affinity of truth, because there's no lying in outer space. So here we are, beyond May the 10th, 2025, establishing research teams around the world, because we have launched a One Nation Network, the scientific rescue that allows us to open the blinds, one nation network at a time. And that time is now, because our mission is to bring peace on earth and join humanity with the universal community. We want to bring man as equal to all the beings in the universe by teaching the plasma science and technology equally to everyone, that no one is left out and no one is abused due to the lack of knowledge. So help us achieve this goal. Look at that World Peace Treaty. This is the Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute teachings on plasma science, welcoming all the beautiful knowledge seekers of the carbon nations, learning about the new selection process of the new organic plasma science. That World Peace Treaty is something you have to choose it. You have to sign it unconditionally and mean it sincerely. And if you don't, well, there's always the physical state. The point of the true GANS tech is to cross the polyatomic boundaries. You don't want to be left behind. The overlapping fields of Earth space create the peace dome. And is the inertia of the present governed by dimensions of history? It's up to you, because it's time to learn the history of self in a universal context. The GANS is a peaceful superconductor focusing on true intentions. The sun stars are in an emotional rush, ranging the strengths of matter, plasma, and universal states. So the plasma science needs to continue to be delivered daily via the Peace Dome. And we're looking for a practical exchange for peace on Earth. So welcome to the new golden outer space age. And that's the end of this session. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you for being with us, Alex. We thank our lucky stars. Or maybe the stars aren't lucky, they're just intelligence. I never believed in luck. I always said the harder you work, the luckier you get in a way. But let's see if any of the participants would like to raise a question or make a comment at this point. So again, you've confirmed multiple times here, we are the system. And apparently, as Mr. Keshe used those examples about getting into horrific car crashes, and you would never think a human being could walk away. Sometimes people walk away unscathed. So the knowledge is already there within the soul. With that nanosecond, it apparently creates that inertia of the calcium and puts it back together in just a very short period of time. So the knowledge already exists within the soul to do this. And even Mr. Keshe, and I've heard other knowledge seekers have had car crashes and have really no scratches or anything. So it's a matter of, I suppose, putting the right wave or impression on the soul, and the soul will do it. But again, he said we have to learn about this inertia of the calcium, then we can move our physicality on this planet and probably across the universe as well. But I'm fairly comfortable here. I'm not looking forward, other than in the dimension of energy, to manifest in another place, unless I guess I'm needed or the soul wants me to be there. But as I said earlier, you can explore the entire universe from the most beautiful place in the matter state once we start to trigger it. And then, of course, gain that aspect of immortality. So I guess my question would be, how do we create that impression on the soul? We know the soul is impressionable, but there is got to be a key to this, creating that emotion that the soul will then follow through with it. And we're getting closer and closer to that point, so no one lose heart or anything about this.
Overall, Mark, we have an internal field strength. But that internal field strength is susceptible to change based on external field strength. So discrimination in some contexts is a bad word. But we have to discriminate. We have to discriminate what is beneficial and what is not. We have to be able to make that decision. And we can't turn to mommy and say, you know, what should we do? Especially when many times we say to mommy, well, what do you know? You know, just we're going to do it our way. And this is where the problem lies. It is in the continuity of the educational process. We are not consistent. Each of us has our own viewpoint of what is necessary in life. And too many of us have exchanged the compassion for humanity for the compassion of money. And so this is what we get. We get a heartless condition that is, you know, thriving on this planet. And, you know, we seem helpless to change that until we understand that we can enlist the services of a higher order. And speaking of higher order, is wanting the floor.
Unless it's an inadvertent hand, sometimes the control mic right next to the hand.
It's not an. It's an intentional hand.
She's here.
Yeah, I'm here.
Great.
I'm kind of trying to figure out how to deal with, like, I listen to a lot of current news, and a lot of it's bad news, and it affects me. And should I not do that? I feel like I need to be informed about what's apparently going on the matter level. And the other thing is, like, they're now trying to blackmail us into accepting remote reading devices on our water meters, and I really don't want any. The electric company agreed not to have one, but now I have, like, in my apartments, I have one person living in an efficiency apartment, and she's surrounded by 8 meters. You know, I don't really want to connect up to all those remote reading devices and bombard her, or myself for that matter, with all this stuff. And I was thinking about, I had already sent them a letter that I didn't want it, but now they say you pay $50 extra every month for every meter. So that makes it pretty tough, and it's like extortion in a way. And I looked up, is there any adverse effects to this stuff? And it says it has not been proven that there are adverse effects, but I would like them to prove that there aren't any adverse effects, you know. But in a way, I want to confront them, but then I probably have to pay for an attorney. And also, I'd probably go on a blacklist and attract attention, which I don't really want to do. So what do I do? You know, those are 2 questions. Anybody have any thoughts on that?
Although you've really isolated the number one problem, you see, because what they're saying is these changes are for our benefit, and what they're talking about is on behalf. They give you the impression that they're speaking on your behalf.
Right. And the letter wasn't signed by anybody. So from my education so far, I'm supposed to have something that is signed by someone, and then I need to hold that person responsible for any damage and inform that person that I will hold them personally responsible for any damage. But I don't really want to get into a war.
Well, exactly, and then that's really what's happening here. So one of the things we have to understand is that based on the existing system, we have a set of consequences. Changing that system changes the consequences.
Yeah.
So it has to demand a change in approach. So, in the past, you could just, shall we say, run away, and live far away from the rest of civilization, if you will. And many have done that. But, today is becoming more and more difficult to do that if you're wanting to, work in that environment. So I can, it may not be a proper analogy, but I think it's indicative of the situation. My analogy is we went into the grocery store, and I think you all know that in the grocery store, the outer perimeter is where all the good stuff is, and in the center of the grocery store, and all
Yes.
the aisles is
Right.
all the stuff that they advertise heavily. And the reason they advertise it heavily is because they
It's no
need
good.
yeah, and they tell you how good it is. And it is good.
Yeah.
It is good for their profit line and for their welfare. But
Mm.
they are assuming that you agree with it, and then you do. And the point of the matter is that when you come into that grocery store, and we were so health conscious, and we were looking at all the goods, whether they were in the center or in the perimeter, and we said, you know what, we cannot eat well on this planet. We do not have enough money to eat well on this planet. We do not have choices. If we're going to buy from a grocery store or even a farmer, in many cases, what we get is what we get, and we're lucky to get it. But what was explained to me, and I didn't understand it at the time because this was over 30 years ago. The nutrition that we get from whatever we eat is also based on what we seek and what we don't allow, what we repel. So we can actually shield ourselves from the harmful effects and allow the passing through of the beneficial effects. And so as the systems are becoming more, shall we say, invasive and more powerful and working on our weaknesses, which is the emotional field strength of our physicality, we need to shield ourselves better. So there are two ways to do that. One is in that physicality where we create a plasma shield. That's part of the peace dome. And the second way is to do that in our field strength of our emotion and our understanding and the knowledge to understand that our soul is full of good intentions because not only is it our friend, it's us. And so if we rely on that and open ourselves up to the possibility, then we can increase that field strength. And that field strength is operating at orders of magnitude stronger than the field strength of these invasive energies.
Yeah. But what about my tenants? I ordered that, what was that? The home energy enhancement unit, one for each apartment, hasn't come yet. So,
Well, we understand that it's not an individual problem. This is a universal problem
right.
for the inhabitants on this planet because there are those who have, throttled the whole process.
Yeah.
And the reason they have done that is because they're clinging to power. And so that viewpoint that they're trying to impose on us is their viewpoint, and they scare us with these the thoughts of harm. and these are impacting us negatively. So we literally have to be aware, and that will empower us to be more resistant. So it becomes I won't say just a chess match, although that may be appropriate in this case, because one of the things about chess is that the intention is to kill, but the Keshe Foundation has put forward in the store a chess match which allows us to view the whole thing differently. And I think that's what we need to do. We need to elevate our methodologies to be able to deal with this. And it isn't just what we're doing, but as you asked, you talked about your tenants. Well, they too have to become aware, and they will become aware. Well, I'm not saying that it's easy. We do need supplementation, and that's where we're coming in, and we're coming to that conclusion very, very quickly, because 6 weeks ago, I think the One Nation Network has been initiated, and that is the plasma science overriding the nuclear science, and the nuclear science obviously overrides the, how shall we call it, the electrical science, and that's what these meters are registering, the transmission of energy. We are transmitting energy on a higher plane. It's beyond the nuclear level. And so we are on the verge of changing that. But the change has to come from two ways. One is through the physical supplementation, and two is from the enhancement of our viewpoint, our soul viewpoint, to understand that we are the sun stars, and the shine in our sun, it comes from within, and that is overpowering. So we just need to practice that, because we have been inundated 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with the negative thoughts, shall we say, of the fallen angels, and who make us believe that we are the fallen angels. Well, we are, if we kowtow to their nefarious ways. And when we understand that the essence of humanity is more valuable than money, then we can enlist the services of the higher power, which will help us and guide us. And we will see these manifestations. They will override everything. So, as Mark often says, good thoughts, good deeds, good actions, all works together.
So I should make some star formation configurations and place them in the houses.
Precisely. You have the power.
Thank you for the reminder.
Well, thank you for the question, and thank you for your fine service. We need you badly.
Yeah, my sister asked me, how come I'm doing business this way? And I said, I've always done it that way. I mean, not business, but I mean, that's how I lived. I climbed trees and took care of plants. I remember a key experience in my life when I was really little. I was walking on this concrete or this asphalt sidewalk, and there was also bicycle traffic there and so on. And I found a little broken off rosebud. So somebody probably was bringing a bouquet of roses, and it was laying there on the ground, and I picked it up and I took it home and I put it in water, and it opened up for me. It was crooked, but it opened up for me, and that was such a formative experience that shaped the rest of my life.
Well, it just shows you how impactful your external input is. And this is what we've been talking to, and then a lot of people look at inertia as just being that, shall we say, carry forward until an external input comes in to alter the speed and direction and everything else. The inertia is the coming together of the overlapping fields, and external input is what changes that inertia. And that input doesn't come it can come at the inertia level, but it can also come at the substrate, the plasma level. And it's a lot easier when it comes at the plasma level.
Yeah, but I forgot to say that this little rosebud had been run over and flattened. And so it was particularly impressive to me that it opened up and it was beautiful. It was crooked, but it was still beautiful.
Well, remember, when the soldiers leave the field, all the flowers that they trampled on will grow.
Right.
So, who has the higher field strength? Those who, flex their physical muscles and their power, or those who are engaged with the universal context.
Mm-hmm.
So you elevated the soul of that little rose and it got to show its beauty.
Right. And I felt I took it personally that it did that for me because I rescued it.
Yes, there are a lot of souls in need, and that's what we do with the Peace Stone and so on and so forth.
And that I had treated all my tenants that way.
Yes. But yeah, they're twisting your arm in a way.
Who?
With the fine for.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they always said it's better to have separate utilities when you go to sell, but if you just had 1 meter, it might have been able to handle.
Yeah, I mean, at least they consolidate all the gas meters and all the electric meters to one each instead of multiple. Somebody also, the star formation. And then somebody told me also if I put a mirror behind all that stuff, it would reflect it out. Someone else told me I should absorb the fields with magnets because when you reflect them, they're still there, still affect somebody else.
Yeah, and a lot of that is so they could automatically read meters. They don't have to physically send something.
Plus.
Yeah.
Plus. So, okay. Thank you.
And that's why we're doing the One Nation Network, to have, in a way, a different type of system. As he said, we won't need the power and we won't need the Wi-Fi. So perhaps we won't need water as well. We can create the water on demand, just the way he's talking about the virus application, the energy pack, and the rest, the feeding, and so on.
So, Mark, you see the forcefulness of their imposition of these new rules. It just shows you how desperate they are.
Of course.
And, that's already showing a sign of weakness. We have been seeking a graceful transition. And, when they start to do these kinds of mandates, they are not making it very graceful. They're not giving us that opportunity. And so they're forcing our hand, which in a way, they're forcing themselves because we're trying to be graceful and they are not allowing a graceful approach. They are insisting at doing it their way, and their way is going to be, very hurtful. So in the end, based on the counterweight, based on the conservation of energy, that will come back to haunt them. So just stay tuned for the next exciting episode, and let's remember that we are all empowered with the power of the universe because we are all products of the sun-star inertia fields. Thank you very much for allowing me to continue to present, and Mark, I'm going to hand it over to you and just remain if there's more questions.
Okay, let's just take the screen if we can. I'm sure I did that correctly. Yes, I think I did. Okay, any other thoughts or questions? Again, everything seems to be handled quite powerfully in the background, step by step, just asking us to be part of it, reach into your pocket and allow the Keshe Foundation to operate freely. We can see that the technology is beyond even most of our imaginations, and I don't think we've seen anything yet. We're just at the beginning of this beautiful new period that we're coming into. And again, a lot of help from external forces, and this will change the emotion, which will change the DNA, and we'll all start to become more peaceful. But as Mr. Keshe said at the end of the last workshop, we may see the change in the next 20 or 30 years, but I think we'll start to feel and be aware of the change as knowledge seekers in a much deeper way as we start to interact with the energy dimension of the One Nation Network. But we'll have to wait and see. As he said, there's a lot to wait and see. Any other thoughts or questions, or I'll play the final disclaimer. Meeting session will come to an end. Again, Alex was mentioning the three wise men. Again, something very easy for you to start to work on, at least become aware of the gift. This is the time of the season where the three wise men gave their gift to the Christ child, but it was a more deeper gift than we understood in the books, the holy books. It was the thinking, speaking, and acting good. And you can apply that and create your own sort of shielding and probably a lot of wellness within your own life. And then, of course, if you can do that and learn about this giving, and automatically you receive just the giving part, then you can be proud of the work you do, and you'll be proud of the person you are, and you'll be proud of the difference you're making. Again, this is a long-term plan rather than something short and quick. So again, apply the ethos of the three wise men if you can. Start to work with it. I think this is probably the area we offend more than many of the other areas, is in our thought world. And of course, that is the dimension of space I think he's talking about. So we can't go out into the universe with the wrong thoughts or the wrong emotions and the wrong behavior. So it's up to us to move in that direction. At least make the wish to, and then we'll see the wish manifest itself. So thank you all. If there's no other comments or questions, we'll play the final disclaimer and the session will come to an end. Thank you all for being here. Continuing on, and we're so privileged to be here. Again, most of the people, as he said, we're all involved in the matter state, far too involved with nothing. And again, this existence on this planet is just a short existence of the life of the soul. But we think it's almost the beginning and the end. It will even kill for it. So thank you all. Enjoy the rest of your day. And thank you for carrying a very small corner of a very huge carpet that's extending across the universe. Again, I don't think we've understood the full dimension of the work of what Mr. Keshe is doing, but step by step, we're becoming more and more aware. Again, birthday of Mitra coming up on the 21st as we proceed from the longest night into the daylight, or the days start to become longer, just a symbolic meaning in a way. But this year may have a deeper impression on all of us as we see others from the universe. And as Mr. Keshe said, we see this 3I as a biological entity able to shield itself, to communicate and to do other things. Perhaps there's more going on in the background with some of these space agencies. The public is probably going to be the last to know, but certainly being in and around the Keshe Foundation, we've been briefed and we understand more than even some of the NASA scientists, as I understand it. So thank you all. Continue to share the knowledge, continue to give and unconditionally, and work in that dimension of energy. So thank you all. Any other last comments? Okay, I see there's 2 new ones. Thank you all. Thank you, Alex, and thank you as well, Yin. Okay, so I'm going to play the final disclaimer and the session will come to an end. Thank you all again. We will see you hopefully in the One Planet, One Nation, One Race on Tuesday, or the Reactor Group on Wednesday, and then, of course, the Knowledge Seekers Workshop on Thursdays. As he said, they're preparing perhaps for something special in and around the 19th. So thank you all, and enjoy this new dimension of perceiving and understanding in the energy dimension. Thank you again.
Disclaimer. The information and education material contained herein is meant to promote the general understanding and dialogue of GAN's processing. Such information is not meant or intended to serve as a substitute for a healthcare professional's clinical training, experience, or judgment. For patients and individuals, such information is not to be a substitute for professional medical, therapeutic, or healthcare advice or counseling. For medical issues or concerns, including decisions about medications and other treatments, readers, viewers, listeners should always consult their physician or, in serious cases, seek immediate assistance from emergency personnel. Prescription information, procedures, and use of medical devices information should be undertaken only by properly trained and certified medical personnel. We specifically disclaim any warranties, express or implied, including implied warranties of merchantability or fitness for a particular purpose. Such information is provided, as is, and is believed to be accurate at the time of its publishing, but it is the viewer's job to evaluate the accuracy of any information found in this presentation. Every case presented is of their own experience, applied by themselves for themselves, and it applies to their case only. Every person experiencing health problems should seek professional medical advice and consult their course of treatment with a doctor. The processes of plasma balancing described herein are a natural process which supports the body but does not replace medical advice or therapies one is already subject to.